Chapter 740. Now, the store's fan club would auction a Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearl every night under Lissen's organization. Since the elemental pearls were auctioned by bidding, it was uncertain what kind of spiritual materials could be obtained. The spiritual ingredients obtained through the auction of the elemental pearls had been categorized by Lissen into several diamond face storage boxes and placed in the storage room on the third floor of the manor. In fact, if Lin Yuan wanted to search for spiritual ingredients, he could no longer only go through the purchase with No Lost Stores fan club. After understanding the Sun family's Do Immortal Gardens information, he knew that the Sun family's Do Immortal Gardens high-class creation master resources were completely dependent on him. This gave Lin Yuan the confidence to walk Sun Ningxiang's path when collecting spiritual ingredients. Sun Ningxiang's method would undoubtedly make it much easier for him to collect some rare resources. As for the remuneration, he could use all his effort to repay it. Lin Yuan, who had become a B-rank spirit chi professional, was so fast that even he was afraid of himself. He had previously given Hu Quan and Master Hong Xin 2 boxes of Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls each for them to use for daily consumption. At that moment, Lin Yuan took out 2 brocade boxes of Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls and handed them to Hu Quan. "Uncle Hu still has a lot of elemental pearls here. It should be enough for you to exchange for radium uranium steel in the Spirit Craftsman Association." To him, the most basic transaction currency was the elemental pearls that were constantly produced in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. After Hu Quan accepted the elemental pearls, he nervously stored them in the diamond face storage box. When Lin Yuan had given Hu Quan the elemental pearls, he had only felt that he had done something very ordinary. However, every time he collected the elemental pearls from Lin Yuan, he would become very vigilant and look at the ring-shaped diamond face storage box on his hand. He was afraid that the ring-shaped diamond face storage box would fall from his hand and be lost. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and asked Hu Quan, "Uncle Hu, according to your investigation, which part of the underground space is the most solid?" Hu Quan said immediately, "The terrain behind the manor is the sturdiest in the direction of the Green Hill. Although the Green Hill is only 400 to 500 meters above the ground, the veins of the mountains and rivers under the ground extend for nearly 1,000 meters. Upon hearing Hu Quan's words, Lin Yuan immediately decided on the location of the space tunnel in the underground space. "Uncle Hu, dig 300 meters under the Green Hill and set up a large number of spatial magnets and floating silver threads in the space 300 meters below the Green Hill. Be sure to be able to completely conceal the spatial fluctuations. This kind of ultra-long-distance cross-federation space tunnel would inevitably be accompanied by powerful spatial fluctuations during the teleportation. If there was no strict spatial isolation, even if the spatial tunnel was set up 300 meters underground, it was very likely to be detected by spatial phase." After that, Lin Yuan did not have any other requirements for the underground space. When he recalled Hu Quan and Master Hong Xin's state when he had just entered the room, he said to them, "Don't worry. Uncle Hu, my main goal in the underground space is to build an underground base that belongs to Sky City. Of Master of Essence. So and of Master of. Hu Quan nodded and understood what Lin Yuan meant. At the same time, when Hu Quan saw Master Hong Xin's sloppy appearance, he could not help but feel somewhat embarrassed. His old habit of being a spirit craftsman had acted up, and he couldn't control his temper. Hu Quan said to Lin Yuan, "I've contacted quite a number of Class 3 spirit craftsmen, including some Class 2 spirit craftsmen who are about to advance to Class 3 spirit craftsmen. There are about 300 of them in total. I plan to incorporate them into the Heavenly Craft Pavilion. After this, the Heavenly Craft Pavilion will no longer recruit spirit craftsmen. I found a few good seedlings among the 200 spirit craftsmen previously. After nurturing them for a period of time, they have a high chance of becoming Class 4 spirit craftsmen. After becoming a Class 4 spirit craftsman, these people will be able to hold their own. With the addition of this new batch of spirit craftsmen, the fortifications of the hidden Wirm Lake and the underground space can be carried out together." After speaking to Lin Yuan, Hu Quan patted Master Hong Xin's shoulder and said, "Yes, Master Hong Xin. Let's go, old brother. Your younger brother will treat you to a meal. I will then listen to your requests and suggestions for the underground Fey breeding base." Master Hong Xin did not care about Hu Quan's bad temper at all. Because if Grandmaster Hong Xin was disturbed while concocting the mystical liquid, his temper would probably be 10 times worse than Hu Quan's. Although Master Hong Xin was a little confused, seeing that Hu Quan wanted to treat him to a meal, Master Hong Xin immediately stood up and chuckled. "Since you're going to eat, then accompany this old man back home first. I have quite a lot of wine that I brewed using spirit materials. Let's drink some. Lin Yuan was about to return to his room when he saw Hu Quan and Master Hong Shen walking down the stairs neatly dressed. As soon as Lin Yuan saw Lu Jie, he recalled the Moon Empress Nix assembly. Lin Yuan asked Lu Jie, "Brother Lu, if you don't need to go to Yiyang Palace in 10 days, let's go to the Nix assembly together." When Lin Yuan left the Radiant Moon Palace, the Moon Empress had asked him to attend the Night Dawn Palace's Nix Assembly's banquet 10 days later at 6 p.m. Originally, the Moon Empress had planned to bring Lin Yuan along. However, she needed to go to Night Dawn Palace one day in advance to discuss the 100-year plan of the revival of the Slumbering One with Night Leaning Moon, Chef Supreme, Bamboo Monarch, and other top experts in the Radiance Federation. She had to make the corresponding preparations in advance. Therefore, even if the Moon Empress brought Lin Yuan there in advance, she could not bring him to attend the meeting. Instead of letting Lin Yuan stay in Night Dawn Palace for a day, it was better for him to come over when the Nix assembly began. After the Moon Empress had accepted Lin Yuan as a disciple, she had never brought him to a public event. Now that Night Leaning Moon had accepted a disciple, she was going to hold a Nix assembly to announce it to the world. This made the Moon Empress feel that she should also bring Lin Yuan to show off. However, the Moon Empress understood Lin Yuan's low-profile character. Otherwise, he would not have split his identity as a combat-class spirit chi professional and a creation master on Star Web. Furthermore, the identity of a creation master had been forcefully split into two with a mask. Therefore, during the Nix assembly, the Moon Empress had specially asked Lin Yuan if he wanted to reveal his identity. At that time, Lin Yuan could see that his master really wanted him to reveal his identity, and he did not think of rejecting this. Chapter 3, End of this chapter. Chapter 741. The Radiance Federation's top factions would send their senior experts along with their core disciples to attend the Great Night Convention. Only the top factions and a few veteran factions with rich foundations would be able to attend the convention. Sun Ningxiang, the Miao family's direct descendants, and even the Sea of Bliss Qi Haiyang were likely to attend this Great Night meeting. Lin Yuan felt that this Great Night meeting was a good opportunity for him. He now had three identities. His original identity was Lin Yuan, and he was the faction Sky City's controller. Lin Yuan's original identity had always been an ordinary Class 2 creation master. After the Great Night meeting, Lin Yuan's identity as an ordinary Class 2 creation master would have the shining label of the Moon Empress disciple. Originally, Lin Yuan had always been in contact with the major factions as Sky City's controller. This time, Lin Yuan felt that he could completely change his identity and not use the identity of Sky City's controller. Instead, he would use the identity of the Moon Empress disciple to get in touch with the top faction's younger generation. In Lin Yuan's opinion, sometimes he did not need three identities. Two identities could increase the sense of mystery. Could also deceive people. Lu Jie was stunned when he heard Lin Yuan's words. After thinking for a long time and confirming that he really had not heard of the Great Night meeting, he asked Lin Yuan, "I know what kind of place the Yiyang Palace is, but what is the Great Night meeting?" Upon seeing Lu Jie's dumbfounded expression, Lin Yuan was also stunned. Then Lin Yuan explained to Lu Jie what the Great Night meeting was about. Lu Jie took out his cell phone and called his master Night Leaning Moon. As a result, he heard Night Leaning Moon say lightly, "There is such a thing." "That's true. I was going to tell you the night before." After hanging up the phone, Lu Jie said to Lin Yuan, "Lin Yuan, I don't have to go there first." "Lin Yuan, I don't have to go there first. Let's go together then." After saying that, Lu Jie touched the back of his head and said with a silly smile, "Master has been very busy recently. Master has been very busy dispatching the envoys from various places. I heard that 2 Pinnacle Class 4 swamp dimensional rifts have opened up in the vicinity of the Western Great Lake. These 2 Pinnacle Class 4 swamp dimensional rifts are very close to each other and have a faint possibility of mutually influencing each other to evolve into Class 5. The Great Western Swamp is inaccessible and extremely far from the 32 major cities. Thus, Master intends to use this opportunity to let the 2 pinnacle dimensional rifts influence each other and upgrade them to Class 5. Master has already deployed the 30 envoys and the Right Master of the Left and Right Masters of the Land of Soul Suppression to the Great Western Marsh." Upon hearing Lu Jie's words, Lin Yuan immediately understood that the Chief Guard was eyeing the sacred source lifeforms in the Class 5 dimensional rift. The Nix assembly would be held in the imperial capital's Yiyang Palace. Most likely, the top forces and top veteran forces had already received the notice and were preparing to head there. In fact, many top forces had already brought their core disciples to the royal capital. He was already a slow learner, but he didn't expect Lu Jie to know about it even later than he did. Lu Jie asked when he saw that Lin Yuan was about to go upstairs. Lin Yuan, I'm going to meet a few king-class experts. These king-class experts have applied to become white-clothed servants, and they have all reached the standards you specified. Do you want to go with me? Lin Yuan looked at the time. Using Morbius True Data, the Starlight Wisdom Cloud fully bloomed at around 10 p.m. It was only 2 in the afternoon, so Lin Yuan and Lu Jie went to interview this batch of king-class experts. Although these king-class experts' main phase were not outstanding, they had comprehended as many as 3 willpower runes. These king-class experts were all over the age of middle-aged. Even so, these king-class experts could be considered dragons and phoenixes among men in terms of perception of willpower runes. However, they did not have enough resources to nurture phase. These people might be geniuses, but their arrogance had long been erased by reality, and their edges had become abnormally flat. Finally, under the oath, these 4 king-class experts became Sky City's white-clothed servants. Lin Yuan also had to fulfill his promise to prepare bronze/epic phase for these 4 king-class experts who had become white-clothed servants. This was simply a piece of cake for Lin Yuan. All 4 of them added up would only take half an hour. Afterward, Lu Jie, as the white-robed major domo, let the 4 white-clothed servants continue to live and accumulate resources as usual. 3 days later, Lin Yuan would mail the enhanced phase to these 4 king-class experts through Ostrich Logistics. Lin Yuan's purpose in establishing the white-clothed servants plan was to provide high-quality bronze phase in exchange for the king-class experts' allegiance. He would then let the king-class experts collect resources and nurture phase themselves. Zhou Luo had been recognized by Lin Yuan after the trip to Indigo Azure City, which was also considered an accident of Lin Yuan's white-clothed servants plan. At present, the 4 newly accepted white-clothed servants of Sky City still needed some time to grow. Slowly, Sky City's white-clothed servants would be raised in this way. When Sky City didn't need these white-clothed followers, these white-clothed followers were the scattered clouds outside Sky City. When Sky City needed these white-clothed servants, Sky City's command would be the wind. It would let the scattered clouds gather together and burst out with amazing power. After returning to the mansion, Lin Yuan entered his room and began to continue to enhance the phase that Sun Ningxiang and the Blissful Sea clan had mailed to him. In 3 hours, Lin Yuan had completed the workload that could not be completed even if he worked for a day. Then, Lin Yuan observed the 6 soldier rations radishes in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. After observing for a while, Lin Yuan found that although the soldier rations radishes were constantly growing vines, the old stump part of the soldier rations radishes did not grow at all. The soldier rations radishes old stump division required pure spirit qi. Based on the state when Lin Yuan took the branches and leaves out of the Spirit Lock spatial zone and the state of the branches and leaves in the Spirit Lock spatial zone's pure spirit qi, he could draw a conclusion. However, the pure spirit qi in the Spirit Lock spatial zone could only maintain the activity of the soldier rations radishes old stump and not promote them to grow. At that moment, Lin Yuan thought of the life form sacrificial fire's promotion of the soldier rations radishes rooting effect. Lin Yuan carried the twin red pagoda over and placed it beside the 6 soldier rations radishes. Then he used the 6 jade basins of the soldier rations radishes to surround the twin red pagoda. The thumb-sized emerald green flame on the twin red pagoda's main flower's head danced as usual. Lin Yuan found that the speed at which the soldier rations radishes grew vines was several times faster than before. Through the changes in the spirit qi in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan could feel that these 6 soldier rations radishes were rapidly growing and also absorbing the pure spirit qi in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan could not see the changes in the old stump with his own eyes. However, based on the speed at which the vines were growing, the soldier rations radishes old stump must also be growing faster. The 4th chapter is a reward for the desert turn 3 lives shore. Good night everyone. Sweet dreams. End of this chapter. Chapter 742. Lin Yuan decided to place the twin red pagoda's main flower in the middle of the 6 pots of soldier grain radish to accelerate its growth. Seeing that it was 10 o'clock, Lin Yuan summoned the Starlight Ji-Tan from the Spirit Lock spatial zone. After Lin Yuan took out the Starlight Ji-Tan in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, he found that the dry, weed-like yellow leaves at the bottom were slowly absorbing the spirit qi in the Spirit Lock spatial zone and turning into a tender yellow color. The Starlight Ji-Tan's originally half-open large flower bud had also completely bloomed at that moment. The yellow spots wandered on the large flower bud and finally gathered toward the Starlight Ji-Tan's stamen. Under Lin Yuan's gaze, the Starlight Ji-Tan's huge white flower quickly withered. It was really like a short-lived flower. When the white flower withered, amber pollen crystals also formed above the stamen. Lin Yuan was a little puzzled. According to common sense, after the starlight jitan bloomed a flower, the plant would wither because all the nutrients were absorbed by the flower. However, the starlight pollen that the starlight jitan used for rolling had condensed, but the plant had not died. Under the nourishment of the spirit qi in the spirit lock spatial zone, the starlight jitan's tender yellow plant was turning emerald green. At that moment, Lin Yuan thought of what his master, the Moon Empress, had said. In order to induce the starlight jitan to bloom, it required a bottle of class 5 spirit liquid with a high concentration of spirit qi or 3 bottles of class 4 spirit liquid with a high concentration of spirit qi every day for a month. This showed the preciousness of the starlight pollen that the starlight jitan had condensed. However, it also showed the effect of a high concentration of spirit qi on the starlight jitan. The purity and concentration of spirit qi in Lin Yuan's spirit lock spatial zone could not even be compared to the concentration of spirit qi in the spirit liquids concocted by class 5 creation masters. Lin Yuan used Morbius true data to check on the starlight jitan that had been resurrected in the high concentration of spirit qi. Lin Yuan was surprised to find that the starlight jitan had mutated under the nourishment of the pure spirit qi in the spirit lock spatial zone. It had mutated into a fae called the astrologer jitan. Its pollen had completely lost the effect of the starlight jitan, allowing spirit qi professionals to roll their grades. However, under true data, the pollen produced by the astrologer jitan could absorb the energy between the stars and turn it into a kind of good luck. Using good luck to break through a person's innate bad luck. This kind of innate bad luck included cursing one's children, husband, relatives, etc. Luck was an illusory thing, not to mention that a person was born with bad luck. Normally, as a young man of the new era, Lin Yuan would not believe such bad luck as cursing one's children, husband, and relatives. However, Lin Yuan had encountered Wang Fuxiang. He had no choice but to believe that someone was born with this curse-like misfortune. Actually, Lin Yuan did not believe Wang Fuxiang when she said that she had cursed so many husbands, boyfriends, and girlfriends. In Lin Yuan's opinion, even if what Wang Fuxiang said was true, it might not be due to bad luck. Who knew if Wang Fuxiang had any tricks up her sleeves? Lin Yuan did not know much about Wang Fuxiang. However, when everyone was eating together not long ago, Listen had mentioned the elegant pavilion when talking about the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's recent management of luxury goods resources. The elegant pavilion's function was to rate luxury resources, which was included in the big function of luxury. A function like rating luxury resources could easily generate a large amount of cash flow. The elegant pavilion could integrate the luxury goods resources of various major factions and rate them. Lin Yuan did not believe that the elegant pavilion did not have a powerful force supporting it. During the meal, Lin Yuan saw that Duan He seemed to know Wang Fuxiang very well, so he specifically asked Duan He about Wang Fuxiang's situation. When Duan He had been a spirit guard in the spirit guards, he had participated in the investigation of Wang Fuxiang. It could be said that he had a very clear understanding of Wang Fuxiang's situation. If someone else had asked Duan He about Wang Fuxiang's situation, he would not have said anything. However, Duan He was now a member of Sky City, and he knew that Lin Yuan was the Moon Empress disciple, so he did not hide anything from Lin Yuan. From the information Duan He provided, it could be confirmed that those who had been cursed to death by Wang Fuxiang had all been infected with bad luck for no reason. Most of these people had known Wang Fuxiang for a long time, and they had only died after they had confirmed their relationship with Wang Fuxiang. Moreover, these people who died had a common characteristic. The stronger they were, the later they died. After a detailed investigation by the spirit guards, they found that Wang Fuxiang valued every relationship very much. Each time a lover died, Wang Fuxiang would be depressed for a long period of time. These circumstances made Lin Yuan believe that there were people in this world who were born with bad luck. The starlight jitan had mutated into the astrologer jitan under the high concentration of spiritual energy. The pollen condensed by the starlight jitan could alleviate or resolve the innate misfortune of people like Wang Fuxiang based on the amount of misfortune they had. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh at the miraculous effect of the astrology jitan's fei on luck. This astrologer jitan was not of much use to Lin Yuan at the moment, so he placed it in a corner of the workbench in the spirit lock spatial zone. Then he plucked the amber pollen that starlight jitan had condensed from the withered flower core. Lin Yuan looked at the amber-colored starlight pollen crystal in his hand and recalled the usage method that his master, the Moon Empress, had told him. Lin Yuan immediately swallowed the pollen into his stomach. Immediately after, Lin Yuan felt his entire body become warm, and there was a trace of bitter taste in his throat. This bitter taste spread to all parts of Lin Yuan's body, making him feel hot and swollen. However, Lin Yuan felt very comfortable with this swollen feeling. The Starlight Jitan's pollen could allow spirit chi professionals to break through the grade limit and increase the phase grade by another level. At the same time, it could cleanse the impurities in the spirit chi professional's body. However, the impurities in Lin Yuan's body and soul had been cleansed by the silver stamen gold luster cache's nectar. Since there were no impurities in Lin Yuan's body, he did not need to experience the pain of cleansing the impurities. He would also not expel a large amount of impurities from his body. The Starlight Jitan's pollen cleansed the impurities in his body, and it was like a nourishment and massage for Lin Yuan's cells. It allowed every cell in Lin Yuan's body to reach the most healthy and active state. After a long time, Lin Yuan opened his eyes and realized that his spirit, essence, and spirit had been greatly improved. First, it was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 743. As a spirit chi professional, he could sense the limit of his contracted phase. After Lin Yuan became a B-rank spirit chi professional, he could clearly sense that Platinum X was his limit. Previously, Lin Yuan's body had been baptized by the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar and was far superior to ordinary people. More importantly, it was because the Jasmine Lily was a Fey under Morbius Spirit Lock Spatial Zone and not a Fey that Lin Yuan had contracted with his spiritual energy. After consuming the Starlight Jitan's pollen, Lin Yuan could sense that the limit of his contracted phase had reached Diamond X. Lin Yuan immediately summoned the ethereal jellyfish. When he summoned the ethereal jellyfish, it immediately flashed and covered his head. It wanted to lie comfortably on Lin Yuan's head. Lin Yuan seemed to have expected the ethereal jellyfish's action. He took a step forward and tilted his head. The ethereal jellyfish that was flashing toward Lin Yuan landed on his neck. The ethereal jellyfish's bright red tentacles were on Lin Yuan's neck like a huge scarf. Coupled with Lin Yuan's white and blue spirit chi clothes, it looked abnormally festive. Lin Yuan took the ethereal jellyfish off his neck and looked at the silver eye/legend ethereal jellyfish. He reached out and touched the new tentacles under the ethereal jellyfish's body and the tentacles that had grown halfway in the middle of its body. Lin Yuan found that among all his phase, the ethereal jellyfish was the most comfortable to touch. It was like touching a moist jelly. Even Genius soft fur could not be compared to the ethereal jellyfish's smooth and tender skin. Lin Yuan said to the ethereal jellyfish, which was occasionally making gudgy sounds. "Ethereal jellyfish, I'm going to enhance your grade in a while." While speaking, Lin Yuan took out the bottle of spirit fluid that the Moon Empress had given him, which was concocted from the spatial mother shellfish's shell. After he took out the bottle of spirit fluid, there was no special reaction in the spirit lock spatial zone. It did not produce hundreds or thousands of blooming spatial flowers in the air like when he took out the bottle in the Radiant Moon Palace. Lin Yuan thought to himself. It seemed like the spatial stability in the spirit lock spatial zone was much higher than the outside world. The ethereal jellyfish was silly and did not quite understand what Lin Yuan meant. However, when it saw Lin Yuan caressing its tentacle, it obediently raised its tentacle. It then shook its tentacles at Lin Yuan, seemingly urging him to cut its hair. He had trimmed the ethereal jellyfish's tentacles several times. Lin Yuan did not keep these trimmed tentacles. Instead, he set up tentacle nodes in many places in the imperial capital. At that moment, he let the source sand precipitate the day and night spirit silver feathers and cut off the ethereal jellyfish's newly grown tentacles. As he looked at the ethereal jellyfish's tentacles, he felt that he could set up the coordinates of the tentacle nodes in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's newly established auction house, Huquan's Sky Armament Pavilion, and the Manor's underground space to facilitate his journey. If he wanted to go to the Radiant Moon Palace now, he would only need to teleport a few times and would not need to waste time on the road. Lin Yuan also planned to distribute a portion of the ethereal jellyfish's tentacles to the others in the manor. As long as the others activated the silver ability node stored in the ethereal jellyfish's tentacles, they would be able to teleport in the direction of the ethereal jellyfish from the origin. This was equivalent to Lin Yuan preparing a life-saving trump card for the others in the manor. Even if Listen was surrounded by King-class experts, he could escape to the ethereal jellyfish's location through the node before the King-class experts could kill him. Lin Yuan was 100% satisfied with this spatial teleportation source-type ethereal jellyfish that his master, the Moon Empress, had given him and could be considered a strategic resource. The silver ethereal jellyfish's 3 abilities, tentacle nodes, node teleportation, node trigger, and even its exclusive skill, space tunnel, were extremely useful to Lin Yuan. If the ethereal jellyfish had not detected the evolving water world dimensional rift, Lin Yuan would not have obtained the sacred source life form, the sacred sword embracing queen. It also had the ability to use law crystal fragments and law source crystals to produce law crystals in batches. He would not have the opportunity to go to the Divine Wood Federation to train at will. Next, Lin Yuan was going to use the spirit liquid in the bottle to upgrade the ethereal jellyfish from Silver Eye/Legend to Diamond X/Legend. This would allow the ethereal jellyfish to have a qualitative leap. Source-type life forms were different from phase. Phase could continuously evolve their bloodline and mutate. However, apart from special types of source-type life forms, such as Red Thorn and Duan He's contracted phaseless bird, most source-type life forms would not change their names during the evolution process. This was the case for the ethereal jellyfish. However, Lin Yuan was very much looking forward to the 3 new abilities that would appear when the ethereal jellyfish reached Diamond. Lin Yuan opened the bottle stopper and poured the silver spatial spirit liquid on the ethereal jellyfish. When the ethereal jellyfish came into contact with the spatial spirit liquid, its dark red body was like a sponge that absorbed the few drops of spirit liquid that Lin Yuan poured on it. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan tilted the bottle's mouth and poured more spirit liquid on the ethereal jellyfish. The ethereal jellyfish also absorbed all the spatial spirit liquid that Lin Yuan poured into its body without leaving a single drop. After Lin Yuan poured all the spatial spirit liquid in the bottle on the ethereal jellyfish, he saw the ethereal jellyfish's body light up with a resplendent silver light. This silver light enveloped the ethereal jellyfish's original bright red color. Immediately after, the ethereal jellyfish's body rapidly grew under Lin Yuan's naked eyes. With the previous experience of enhancing Blackie, Lin Yuan immediately left the spirit lock spatial zone with the evolving ethereal jellyfish. The ethereal jellyfish seemed to be drunk as it tossed around in the air during the process of its body enlarging. Due to the difference in spatial stability between the outside space and the spirit lock spatial zone, the silver energy on the ethereal jellyfish's body surface caused many fine spatial ripples to appear in the space inside Lin Yuan's room. At that moment, with the ethereal jellyfish's body as the core, the bright red light suddenly broke the silver shackles. The fine spatial ripples suddenly spread out like a layer of barrier that blocked Lin Yuan's vision. Just as the spatial ripples stopped spreading out, the ethereal jellyfish flashed and disappeared on the spot. Then it appeared in its original position as though it had never left. Lin Yuan knew that the ethereal jellyfish was shuttling back and forth between different dimensions. Through the contract, Lin Yuan could feel that the ethereal jellyfish's grade was constantly rising. The second was even more. End of this chapter. Chapter 744. Although the ethereal jellyfish's body was blocked by the spatial ripples, the aura on its body became stronger and stronger. When the ethereal jellyfish's rank and aura stopped increasing, the scarlet radiance around the ethereal jellyfish retracted into its body. The fine spatial fluctuations that had blocked Lin Yuan's line of sight also disappeared in an instant. Lin Yuan looked at the evolved ethereal jellyfish and found that it had changed drastically. The ethereal jellyfish, which was only 30 centimeters long before including its tentacles, had now grown to 1.5 meters long. The umbrella cap on the top of the ethereal jellyfish was much larger than before, and it was no longer translucent red. Instead, it had turned from a translucent captivating red to a crystalline silver red, like the color of blood and mercury completely fusing together. At that moment, the ethereal jellyfish's tentacles were much thicker than before. The 3 tentacles that grew out of the ethereal jellyfish's center were coiled together, and they were as thick as Lin Yuan's wrist. However, the evolved ethereal jellyfish had grown a thick main tentacle with a layer of fine scales on its surface. If the tentacles that the ethereal jellyfish had originally grown were like human hands and feet, the ethereal jellyfish's main tentacle, which was almost as thick as Lin Yuan's thigh, was like a human's torso. When he was looking at the changes in the ethereal jellyfish's appearance, he was stunned. This was because he sensed a timid and clear thought in his mind. This timid and clear thought made Lin Yuan feel both familiar and unfamiliar. Then he realized that the evolved ethereal jellyfish was greeting him. Therefore, he communicated with the ethereal jellyfish in his mind. Lin Yuan realized that although the ethereal jellyfish didn't have any vocal organs and couldn't communicate with him directly, it could still communicate with him. However, there were no longer any obstacles in the communication between their minds. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt the ethereal jellyfish's thought of presenting a treasure. Master, look at this core tentacle in the middle. It's much more powerful than the other 3 tentacles. Lin Yuan used his hand to touch the ethereal jellyfish's canopy and found that it felt even better than before after its evolution. It became softer and more elastic than before. Lin Yuan could not help but have a thought. If I can hug the ethereal jellyfish when I sleep at night, it should be very comfortable. The ethereal jellyfish sensed Lin Yuan's thoughts and immediately expressed eagerly that Lin Yuan could hug it tonight. When he sensed the ethereal jellyfish's thoughts, he coughed violently. Then he recalled that since the ethereal jellyfish did not have intelligence, he had yet to give it a name. Now that the ethereal jellyfish had intelligence, he felt that it was time to give it a name. He was very confident in coming up with names. After pondering for a moment, Lin Yuan said to the ethereal jellyfish, "Ethereal jellyfish, can I call you Kong Kong from now on?" When the ethereal jellyfish heard Lin Yuan's name, it immediately shook its tentacles in delight. After passing through several dimensions, he finally returned to his original spot. Lin Yuan looked at the ethereal jellyfish that had gained sentience and smiled. He then used true data to check its attributes. Fey name, ethereal jellyfish, spirit species, mustelity/floating jellyfish, Fey grade, diamond 10 out of 10, Fey type, spatial, Fey quality, legend abilities frowny face tentacle node. By breaking off a tentacle, the broken tentacle will be treated as a spatial node. Node teleportation. By sensing the spatial node, it will teleport to a designated spatial node. Node trigger. Trigger the spatial node marked by the tentacle node and teleport the target of the triggered node to other tentacle nodes or the main body. After teleportation, the tentacle node will be ineffective. Wandering harvesting. The ethereal jellyfish roams between various dimensions and captures the spatial energy in each dimension to condense a spatial crystal in its body. Core tentacle. A main tentacle grows in the ethereal jellyfish's body and condenses a large amount of spatial energy in the main tentacle. When the main tentacle matures, it will fall off on its own. After the main tentacle falls off, it can establish a spatial tunnel at any distance with the ethereal jellyfish as the origin. Spatial transfer. Can delineate the space within a certain range that is purely filled with elemental energy. When the ethereal jellyfish flashes to another dimension, it will bring this space filled with elemental energy to another dimension. Exclusive skill frowny face spatial tunnel. By breaking off a large number of tentacles or using spatial spiritual materials, it will fuse the tentacles into space to form a special long-distance spatial tunnel. When there are 3 long-distance spatial tunnels, each time one is destroyed, a new one can only be established. Lin Yuan was not surprised by the ethereal jellyfish's current grade. He had long known that the ethereal jellyfish would evolve to Diamond X/Legend with the spirit fluid that his master, the Moon Empress, had concocted. However, when he saw the ethereal jellyfish's 3 new abilities under true data, he raised his brows slightly. After a brief shock, Lin Yuan's mind immediately became active. The gold ability, Wandering Harvesting, allowed the ethereal jellyfish to absorb the spatial energy in each dimension to condense a spatial crystal in its body when it roamed between dimensions. Lin Yuan was a little conflicted about the Wandering Harvesting ability. In his opinion, the ethereal jellyfish's gold ability, Wandering Harvesting, did not have any combat significance and could only be considered a production ability. Every time the ethereal jellyfish's spatial tunnel was activated, it consumed a lot of spatial energy. Now, the spatial crystals condensed by the gold ability, Wandering Harvesting, could supply the spatial tunnel's consumption very well. For others, obtaining a production-type ability like Wandering Harvesting, especially one that could condense expensive spatial spiritual materials like spatial crystals, would probably make them crazy with joy. If he did not use the spatial crystals condensed by the ethereal jellyfish to pay for the teleportation consumption of the spatial tunnel, he could just sell the spatial crystals to make a huge profit. But for the current Lin Yuan, resources were the last thing he lacked. Although spatial spiritual materials were rarer than spiritual materials, as long as Lin Yuan was willing to put in the effort to find them, he would always be able to find them through the Star Web Store's fan club and the Do Immortal Gardens relationship network. However, the gold ability, Wandering Harvesting, was not completely useless. At the very least, with Wandering Harvesting, Lin Yuan did not have to worry too much about the consumption of spatial spiritual materials when using the spatial tunnel. It also saved Lin Yuan a lot of trouble, and he did not have to put in the effort to find spatial spiritual materials. Third, seeking monthly votes and recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 745. However, he did not know how long it would take for the ethereal jellyfish to condense a spatial crystal in its body. Now that he could communicate with the ethereal jellyfish, he didn't need to conduct experiments like before. He asked the ethereal jellyfish, "Kong Kong, how long does it take for you to condense a space crystal using wandering fishing?" Upon hearing his words, the ethereal jellyfish immediately communicated with him through the contract. If Kong Kong were to condense a spatial crystal, it would probably take about 15 hours. While communicating, the ethereal jellyfish's body suddenly lit up with a glaring silver-red luster. The ethereal jellyfish waved its tentacles and sensed carefully. Empty has a tentacle that's very, very far away. That place is connected to the space tunnel for teleportation, and it requires 2 space crystals per use. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan immediately knew that Empty had sensed the tentacle that Mystic Moon had placed in the Divine Wood Federation. According to the judgment of the ethereal jellyfish, it would consume 4 space crystals for a round trip to the Divine Wood Federation. It would take the ethereal jellyfish 60 hours to condense the spatial crystal in its body. If the spatial tunnel's ability to recover spatial energy was taken into account, he estimated that if he did not prepare any extra spatial spiritual materials for a round trip, he would not be able to make it back and forth. He would probably have to stay in the Divine Wood Federation for at least 2 days. After understanding the strength of the gold ability, free fishing, he decided not to put the ethereal jellyfish back into the spirit lock spatial zone or spiritual spatial zone in the future. Instead, he allowed the ethereal jellyfish to live in the manner and continuously condense spatial crystals. Then he continued to examine the ethereal jellyfish's platinum ability core tentacle. After seeing the description of the platinum core tentacle under true data, Lin Yuan understood the function of the ethereal jellyfish's main tentacle, which was as thick as his thigh. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the core tentacle could be considered a temporary spatial tunnel without any distance restrictions. When this temporary space tunnel was opened, it would constantly consume the space energy contained in the core tentacle. When the spatial energy contained in the core tentacle was exhausted, the temporary spatial passage would disappear. The space tunnel created by the core tentacles was only temporary, unlike the one created by the ethereal jellyfish with its 3 tentacles. However, if the ethereal jellyfish condensed spatial crystals were thrown into the tunnel created by the core tentacle, the duration of the temporary opening of the tunnel could be extended. The ethereal jellyfish's exclusive skill, Space Tunnel, had a distance limit. The Divine Wood Federation, which was the closest to the Radiance Federation, could almost be considered the ethereal jellyfish's limit. However, the core tentacle didn't have to worry about distance when opening a tunnel. The only thing that needed to be considered was how long the spatial energy contained in the core tentacle could support the tunnel. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the core tentacle was a rather special ability. Lin Yuan felt that the ethereal jellyfish's core tentacle was a useless ability that couldn't be used at all. After understanding when used sacred source lifeforms function, the core tentacle could definitely be considered a strategic class ability. Through the Celestial Parliament's function, Lin Yuan could consume the laws to transfer the ethereal jellyfish's core tentacle to Bei Su or Yin Lin. At that time, Lin Yuan could directly use the core tentacle to open a spatial passage from the ethereal jellyfish to the new world. However, when communicating with the spatial jellyfish, Lin Yuan knew that the core tentacle would take a long time to mature. It was impossible to open such a long-distance spatial passage in a short time. However, each mature ethereal jellyfish core tentacle was equivalent to a key to open the door to a new world for Lin Yuan. Compared to a phase ability, strategic significance was often more important. As for the ethereal jellyfish's diamond ability, Space Shift, Lin Yuan felt that it could be considered an absolute defense against elemental attacks. Space Shift could demarcate a space purely filled with elemental energy and transfer it to another dimension. When Lin Yuan encountered elemental energy attacks in the future, he could rely on Space Shift to move the elemental energy attacks away. With the ethereal jellyfish's Space Shift, Lin Yuan's already strong defense system became more complete. The Source Sand could defend against physical and elemental damage. However, compared to elemental defense, the Source Sand was more inclined to physical defense. Now, Lin Yuan's relatively weak elemental defense was made up for by the ethereal jellyfish's Space Shift. Spiritual defense had a smart ability, Spiritual Expansion. This made Lin Yuan feel that he had become an unkillable cockroach. Coupled with the spirit-drawing dragonfish's exclusive skill, Spirit Purity Burst, the massive amount of Spirit Chi in the Spirit Chi imprint, and the huge vitality in the Vitality imprint, Lin Yuan felt that people might believe him if he said he was a fae. After checking the ethereal jellyfish's true data, Lin Yuan looked at the Diamond X/Legend ethereal jellyfish and could not help but look forward to it. He did not know when the ethereal jellyfish would be able to comprehend the willpower rune from heaven and earth and become a fantasy breed fae. After comprehending the willpower rune, the ethereal jellyfish would be qualified to reach suzerain and become a myth breed fae after undergoing the world cleansing. At that moment, the ethereal jellyfish was the highest grade Fey in Lin Yuan's possession. Lin Yuan opened the window and let the ethereal jellyfish wander around the mansion to condense spatial crystals. After busying himself with the ethereal jellyfish, Lin Yuan returned to the spirit lock spatial zone. The cells in Lin Yuan's body were full of activity after he reached the rolled grade, and they allowed him to be in a state of vigorous energy. In such a state, Lin Yuan did not need to rest at all. He rolled up his sleeves and started to enhance phase. He did not know how long he had been busy for. When Lin Yuan looked at the time, he realized that he had unknowingly worked hard in the spirit lock spatial zone for over 30 hours. He had already worked hard on the pile of plant phase that Sun Ningxiang had given him for him to enhance, as well as the pregnant female angelfish of bliss that the blissful sea clan needed for him to enhance. Lin Yuan had also enhanced a pregnant female angelfish of bliss to bronze/legend without using spirit chi crystals. Then he injected a large amount of spirit chi into the eggs that the female bronze/legend angelfish of bliss was carrying. The first time was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 746. The fish eggs had absorbed the pure spirit chi and become stronger. This made the belly of the bronze/legend angelfish of bliss look much bigger than usual. If the blissful sea tribe got their hands on such a big belly, they would probably treat this pregnant bronze/legend angelfish of blissful like a treasure. However, without the help of Lin Yuan's pure spirit chi, this female fish would not be able to give birth to the group of Nezhas in its belly. Lin Yuan had worked hard for half a month's worth of work in a day. Looking at the pile of enhanced phase in front of him, Lin Yuan felt extremely relaxed. However, Lin Yuan did not intend to mail these enhanced phase over immediately. He would deliver them bit by bit according to the original agreed time. If he delivered so many phase in a short time, it would be a little too shocking. Just as Lin Yuan was about to leave the spirit lock spatial zone, he heard a soft sound. The outermost feathers on the gray crane's eggshell had lost their color and completely peeled off. The layer of pure white feathers with golden patterns inside the eggshell was exposed. Lin Yuan walked over to check and confirmed that gray should be able to hatch within this month. Lin Yuan cut his palm and let the fresh blood cover the eggshell wrapped by gray's feathers. He deepened the bloodline connection with gray. After feeding the wind-speed rapid antelope a wind elemental pearl, Lin Yuan left the spirit lock spatial zone. After leaving the spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan realized that Zhang Xiaobai and Gao Feng had called him during the 30 hours he had been working hard. Lin Yuan called Zhang Xiaobai back first. Zhang Xiaobai's somewhat off-key voice came from the other end of the phone. Lin Yuan, let me tell you. I found a restaurant called Muxiang Residence. It might be a buffet restaurant, but it has guns, eggs, cannons and big kidneys. Lin Yuan's brows could not help but twitch when he heard Zhang Xiaobai's words. When Lin Yuan and Zhang Xiaobai had gone out for a meal, he had seen Zhang Xiaobai eat roasted kidneys in a few bites, which made Lin Yuan's appetite rise. However, after Lin Yuan took a bite of the kidneys, the fishy smell in the roasted kidneys almost made him spiral into the sky. Lin Yuan's taste was not considered light, and he had eaten red braised meat often. However, he really couldn't stand the fishy smell of the kidneys. Just as Lin Yuan was about to reply, he heard Zhang Xiaobai cry out in pain. Xan Ying's voice came from beside Zhang Xiaobai. Why are you talking to Lin Yuan about the kidneys again? Don't you know that you made Lin Yuan vomit last time? Other than you, how many normal people would be willing to eat kidneys? When Zhang Xiaobai heard what Xan Ying said, he immediately felt wronged and muttered. Didn't I eat the kidneys for you? Immediately after, Lin Yuan heard Zhang Xiaobai's cries of pain coming from the other end of the phone. Clearly, Zhang Xiaobai was being attacked by Xan Ying at this time. After a long while, Lin Yuan heard Zhang Xiaobai groan in pain. Lin Yuan, we've settled the contract issue with the Extreme Guild Club. The four of us are free now. We'll go to the manor to find you later. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan revealed a bright smile on his face. During this time, Lin Yuan had been in contact with Zhang Xiaobai and the others. Zhang Xiaobai, Xan Ying, Tan Ran, and Lu Pinru had also come to the manor twice. Now Zhang Xiaobai, Xan Ying, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran were completely free and could join the Dome Guild Club. The Dome Guild Club's base was in the area behind the Return from Faraway Manor. The Dome Guild Club's building had been built by Hu Quan, but the interior had yet to be decorated. After Zhang Xiaobai and the others arrived and did some decorations, they could live in the Dome Guild Club's base. Okay, you guys come over. I'll pick you up at the door in a while. Just as he was about to hang up, Lin Yuan heard Zhang Xiaobai say rather mysteriously, "When we arrive, the four of us will show you something good." After hanging up the phone, Lin Yuan could not help but be a little confused. He did not know what good thing Zhang Xiaobai was talking about. However, he did not dwell on it. Zhang Xiaobai and the others would arrive in a while. Lin Yuan would naturally know what good thing it was when they met. Then Lin Yuan dialed Gao Feng's number. After dialing for a long time, just when Lin Yuan thought he was going to hang up, Gao Feng picked up. Lin Yuan realized that Gao Feng's tone and manner of speaking were the same as when Gao Feng was calling him and saying goodbye to him when his mother was checking on him. Lin Yuan asked softly, "Your family members are beside you?" Upon hearing that, Gao Feng let out a soft "n" and whispered to Lin Yuan, "Give me 5 minutes." Then he hung up the phone. 5 minutes later, Gao Feng called Lin Yuan. As soon as Lin Yuan picked up the phone, he heard Gao Feng's sigh from the other end. "Brother, I came to the royal capital. I originally wanted to look for you to play. But my parents have been taking me to all kinds of gatherings these few days and have gotten to know a bunch of useless people. They don't let me move around freely at all." Upon hearing Gao Feng's tone, Lin Yuan knew that Gao Feng had probably been stifled for the past few days. Lin Yuan asked Gao Feng, "Are you here to participate in the Nix assembly at this time?" Upon hearing that, Gao Feng's eyes lit up. Then, Gao Feng recalled the massive amount of creation master resources that Lin Yuan had and replied, "That's right. Brother, are you participating in the Nix assembly too?" Lin Yuan didn't hide anything. "That's right. Since your family has been taking you to all kinds of gatherings and have no time, then we can meet at the Nix assembly 10 days later. It just so happens that the batch of coral jades with insect patterns has been enhanced." Upon hearing that, Gao Feng had a delighted expression. However, he immediately thought of something and his expression collapsed again. "Brother, the Nix assembly has 3 arenas, the academic arena, the martial arena, and the civil and martial arena, right? I'm not a creation master, so my father asked me to participate in the martial arena. Wouldn't I, a support-type spirit chi professional, be a live target on the martial arena? I really don't know what my father is thinking. It's fine if he asked me to participate in the Radiance 100 sequences test, but he actually forced me to participate in the martial arena." When Lin Yuan heard Gao Feng's words, he felt that he didn't quite understand. He didn't hear from his master, the Moon Empress, that there were academic arena, martial arena, and civil and martial arena in the Nix assembly. Therefore, he maintained the attitude of asking if he didn't understand. Lin Yuan asked Gao Feng, "Gao Feng, what are the academic arena, martial arena, and civil and martial arena?" The second one was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 747. Gao Feng was taken aback by Lin Yuan's question. He was surprised that Lin Yuan did not know about the Nix assembly's layout. One must know that the top forces and top veteran forces had already received news of the Nix assembly half a month ago. Among them, the civil, martial, and martial arenas had caused them to go crazy. There were plenty of big shots in the Nix assembly. Even if the chief guard accepted a disciple, there were always other big shots who did not. Some big shots could still accept disciples even if they already had one. The academic arena, martial arena, and dual arena were the 3 arenas that allowed the core members of the peak forces to display their talents. However, Lin Yuan did not know about such places. Therefore, Gao Feng explained in detail to Lin Yuan. The civil arena is a place for the aristocratic family's descendants to compete with creation masters, while the martial arena tests the strength of spirit chi professionals. However, there are many outstanding descendants of the aristocratic families who are both outstanding spirit chi professionals and creation masters. The civil and martial arenas are a place for such talents to display their strength. I heard that the civil, martial, and martial arenas will be held this time. As long as one successfully defends the arena and stands until the end of the Nix assembly, one will be able to obtain an extremely precious treasure. There are even rumors that the reward for the champion of the civil and martial arenas is a sacred source life form. At this point, the other end of the line was on the verge of tears. Sacred source life forms were not something that could be easily obtained even by top factions. The Gao family had sacred source life forms, but only one was in the hands of Gao Feng's grandfather. Gao Feng's grandfather was also a powerful deterrent for the Gao family as a top faction. Lin Yuan's pupils shrank when he heard Gao Feng mention sacred source life forms. Although Lin Yuan, Wen Yu, and Lu Jia already had sacred source life forms, Chu Xi was still too young. Chu Xi was just too young. Once she turned 18, she would be able to contract the sacred source life form that Song Yu had prepared. However, after understanding the power of sacred source life forms, Lin Yuan realized that each sacred source life form was a unique treasure. Lin Yuan now had a sacred source life form that had not been contracted by anyone. He had prepared it for the mother of bloodbath. However, Endless Summer now had the possibility of becoming a creation breed and becoming Endless Divine Dream Summer. If possible, he felt that he should prepare a sacred source life form for Endless Summer. Endless Summer was truly one of Lin Yuan's people, and sacred source life forms had many functions. If Endless Summer's contracted sacred source life form had an offensive ability, it could greatly increase Endless Summer's strength. This would increase the deterrence of Sky City's top-tier combatants. Even if Endless Summer's sacred source life form was a functional existence like Wenyu, it could still contribute a special power to Sky City. Lin Yuan, who had just found out about the Nyx Assembly's 3 arenas, already had the idea of becoming the champion of both the civil and martial arenas. If he could become the champion of both the civil and martial arena, he might be able to obtain a sacred source life form. Gao Feng's claim of a sacred source life form as a reward for both the civil and martial arena was just a rumor. However, for such a rumor to spread among the top powers, there was a high chance that it was true. Even if the rumors were wrong, the rewards for both civil and martial challenges would definitely be extraordinary. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Gao Feng's soft sigh. Sigh. Whatever the reward is, it has nothing to do with me. I just hope that I don't lose too badly on the martial arena. Gao Feng's tone over the phone was a little melancholy. However, Gao Feng had never felt that there was anything wrong with his contracted Fei. On the contrary, after the Yellow Spring Lily reached Gold X/Fantasy 2, Gao Feng felt that his combat system was already very powerful. In fact, when the Yellow Spring Lily evolved into a Platinum/Fantasy breed Fei, Gao Feng could even fight for the qualification to join the A-grade Guild Club's main team. During this period, Gao Feng had been watching the S-tournament's duels every day, and his mind had also become active. He planned to contact those A-grade Guild Clubs after the Radiance 100 sequence test. He wanted to see if the A-grade Guild Club's main team was lacking in positions. As the only heir of the Gao family, Gao Feng had a pride that far exceeded the average young masters of the top factions. Gao Feng wasn't willing to be an ordinary member of the reserve team of an A-ranked club. Lin Yuan did not know how to comfort Gao Feng, as he had already told Lin Yuan about his phase equipment and grade. Even though Gao Feng's phase grade was already very high, it could not even reach the Star Web's celestial stairway due to its lack of offensive power. Lin Yuan asked Gao Feng while thinking about the civil and martial duels that Gao Feng had mentioned. Is there any explanation for the challenges in the duel arena? Gao Feng thought for a moment and said, the literary arena, the martial arena, and the duel arena. These 3 arenas test one's true ability and knowledge. Everything is decided by strength. The martial arena and the civil and martial arena. In terms of the martial arena, strength is naturally respected, and the victor will be decided through battle. However, it might not be the same for the civil and martial creation master contest. It is said that the Moon Empress, Chef Supreme, and Bamboo Monarch will decide the contest of the civil and martial creation master's abilities on the spot. I think it will be very exciting. At this time, Gao Feng's tone was completely that of an onlooker. Lin Yuan listened to Gao Feng's words and carefully measured his own strength in his heart. Compared to ordinary creation masters, Lin Yuan's weakness had always been enhancing phase grades. Now that he was a B-rank Spirit Chi professional, he could rely on his physique to filter Spirit Chi into phase and successfully evolve them to gold. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the ability to upgrade phase grades was vaguely at the standard of a Class 3 creation master. As for enhancing phase quality and using pure Spirit Chi to induce phase mutations, Class 3 creation masters simply couldn't compare with him. To put it bluntly, Lin Yuan felt that his ability to use pure Spirit Chi to induce phase to mutate was even inferior to the Bamboo Monarch, one of the 3 Class 5 creation masters. Otherwise, he would not have had the chance to meet Lu Jia. In combat, Lin Yuan's strongest offensive ability was still the Jasmine Lily's reverse healing and the exclusive skill, Spirit Essence Burst, which he had never tried before. In terms of defensive capabilities, Lin Yuan did not activate the Source Sand's automatic defense. It could be said that his mental defense and elemental defense had reached a relatively high level. With the massive amount of mental power in Genius Mind as a unit of expansion, Lin Feng was able to use it as a unit of expansion. Lin Yuan felt that even a Diamond/Fantasy breed Fei that was adept at mental attacks would suffer when it launched a mental attack against him. Elemental attacks would not be able to get close to Lin Yuan's body and would be diverted to another dimension by the ethereal jellyfish. The first time, end of this chapter. Chapter 748. For some reason, Lin Yuan suddenly thought of Black's identity, which he had always hidden. It was not that Lin Yuan did not want to expose Black's identity as a combat class spirit chi professional. Even if he exposed his identity as a combat class spirit chi professional, he could use Chimey, Source Sand, Red Thorn, and the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee to enrich his offensive means. However, in terms of lethality, it still could not compare to the Jasmine Lily's reverse healing. Therefore, Lin Yuan felt that there was no need to expose his identity as a combat class spirit chi professional. If the prize for the civil and martial arena was really a sacred source life form, Lin Yuan was determined to obtain it even if he had to use the sacred sword embracing Princess's sacred sword state. After hanging up the phone with Gao Feng, Lin Yuan could not help but look forward to the Nix assembly in 10 days. However, he could imagine how difficult it would be to face the core members of the top faction's younger generation and the various bigwigs' disciples. Even if Lin Yuan was very strong now, it had taken him less than a year to develop from a spirit chi professional to his current level. Lin Yuan knew that his master, the Moon Empress, had a very strong personality. This Nix assembly would be the first time that he and the Moon Empress were master and disciple. Based on Lin Yuan's understanding of his master, the Moon Empress definitely hoped that he could perform well in the Nix assembly. Lin Yuan had always been very clear about his advantages. Compared to the top bigwigs' disciples, Lin Yuan did not have any advantage in terms of phase. In fact, the other bigwigs' disciples might also have contracted sacred source lifeforms. Compared to the sacred source lifeforms, the sacred sword embracing princess that he had contracted was an existence formed by the fusion of two sacred source lifeforms. It was undoubtedly stronger than a single sacred source lifeform. In order to let the sacred sword state's sacred sword unleash its strongest strength in the civil and martial arena, Lin Yuan had to enrich the laws and willpower engraved in the princess's dress as much as possible in these 10 days. Thinking of this, Lin Yuan revealed a trace of a smile on his face. There were a total of 3 complete laws in the princess's dress. The ice flame law that he had obtained from the cold snow pine was still a little short of myth 3. However, the dark death law and dead dream law had already reached myth 3. During this period of time, he had been constantly enhancing phase and had accumulated a large number of law origin crystals. Lin Yuan had yet to use these law origin crystals. Luo Kun could choose to inject the energy in the law origin crystals into any complete law. A crazy plan appeared in Lin Yuan's mind. These 2 laws had both reached myth 3. Although they were both darkness laws, the lethality of Dark Death's law was far greater than Dead Dream's law. Therefore, he wanted to try to see if he could use the law origin crystal to raise the Dark Death law rune in the princess's dress to another level within these 10 days, reaching the level of a creation breed Fae comprehending the law, turning the Dark Death rules into a Dark Death world. Only then would he have the confidence to fight for the civil and martial arena championship. Lin Yuan looked at the time and realized that he had been on the phone with Gao Feng for half an hour. Lin Yuan felt that Gao Feng was simply toxic. Every time he called Gao Feng, he would never hang up within half an hour. Lin Yuan hurriedly prepared to go downstairs to the mansion's entrance to pick up Zhang Xiaobai, Tan Ran, Xaning, and Lu Pinru. As soon as he arrived downstairs, Lin Yuan saw Master Hong Shen sitting on the water rhinoceros leather sofa, looking at the mountain river eternal life carps swimming in the red sandalwood longevity fish tank. Master Hong Shen had obviously just taken a bath, and it was rare for him to be dry and tidy. Even his beard was very stylish. Lin Yuan could not help but feel a little strange. When Master Hong Shen saw Lin Yuan, he quickly stood up and chuckled before showing off his achievements to Lin Yuan. "Young master, this old man has already strengthened that reflecting sun monarch lotus. After strengthening the reflection sun king lotus, I also instructed the group of class 3 spirit craftsmen under Hu Quan to arrange the lotus roots at the bottom of the lake and use spirit energy to guide the roots of the mountain emerald king lotus to grow toward the space below." At this point, Master Hong Shen could not help but reveal a hint of worry. The sun reflection king lotus needs a lot of pure spirit chi to grow its roots. If I want to extend the roots by 1,000 meters, I'm afraid even 200 bottles of class 4 spirit liquid won't be enough. Also, if the pure spirit chi is rich, it is likely to cause the sun reflection king lotus's roots to be too thin and not enough to supply sunlight energy to the other sun reflection king lotus seedlings in the underground space. Upon hearing Master Hong Shen's worry, Lin Yuan replied, "The sun reflection king lotus needs rich and pure spirit chi. I've already thought of a solution to the problem of the sun reflection king lotus needing rich and pure spirit chi. Once the underground space is built, the sun reflection king lotus's roots will naturally be able to connect over. Don't worry." Upon hearing that Lin Yuan had thought of a solution, Master Hong Shen was relieved and said cheerfully, "Young master, You gave me 2 brocade boxes of heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. Young master gave me 2 boxes of heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. I have already prepared a few sets of creation master equipment for the underground spatial zone. Once the underground space is built, I'll immediately start to cultivate the golden lotus brocade on a large scale. Master Hong Shen rubbed his hands as he spoke, his words full of eagerness. Lin Yuan thought of Zhang Xiaobai and the others who would arrive in a while and said to Master Hong Shen, Master Hong Shen, Zhang Xiaobai, Xaning, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran will be here soon. The 4 of them will be the Dome Guild Club's reserve team members in the future. If Master Hong Shen has the time, why don't you help them enhance their phase? Upon hearing this, Master Hong Shen nodded happily. Since young master has spoken, this old man will naturally do his best. As he spoke, Master Hong Shen could not help but sigh that Zhang Xiaobai, Tan Ran, Lu Pinru and Xaning were really lucky. I can't believe I can make a friend like Lin Yuan. Master Hong Shen was very clear about the financial situation of Zhang Xiaobai and company. Previously, Zhang Xiaobai and company's main income came from helping Master Hong Shen obtain spiritual materials. Enhancing phase required massive amounts of precious spiritual ingredients and creation master resources. Even if he helped Zhang Xiaobai and the others enhance their phase for free, they wouldn't need to pay the creation master fees. Just the various high-end spiritual materials needed to concoct the spirit fluid were not something that Zhang Xiaobai and the others could afford. If Zhang Xiaobai and company could afford these high-end spiritual materials, Zhang Xiaobai and company's strength would not be at its current level. Since Lin Yuan wanted Master Hong Shen to help Zhang Xiaobai and company enhance their phase, it was obvious that he would not let them search for the spiritual materials needed to concoct the spirit fluid. With Lin Yuan's resources, Master Hong Shen felt that Zhang Xiaobai and company's hardships were over. Their future path could be said to be smooth. The second was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 749. Lin Yuan's inadvertent words made Master Hong Shen feel Lin Yuan's feelings for his friend. It was rare to see such sincerity from the leader of a force. Coincidentally, Master Hong Shen joined this force. In Master Hong Shen's opinion, he could be considered lucky. When Master Hong Shen saw Lin Yuan walking out of the door, he quickly chased after him and said, Young master, I'll go with you to receive the 4 of them. Let the 4 of them stay at my place for the next few days. I will try to nurture their phase before the underground space is completed. Lin Yuan and Master Hong Shen arrived at the mansion's entrance. In less than 2 minutes they saw Zhang Xiaobai and the others rushing over. Zhang Xiaobai and the others had already been to the manor and were already surprised by the layout of the manor. This time he was used to the luxurious decorations in the manor, so he wasn't too surprised. However, the last time Zhang Xiaobai and the others had come, Lin Yuan had yet to let Hu Quan start working on the hidden WRM lake. This time, Zhang Xiaobai and the others looked in the direction of the artificial lake in the distance and found that the original artificial lake had changed greatly. After Zhang Xiaobai jumped off the flying fei, he came up and prepared to give Lin Yuan a big hug. When Lin Yuan saw Zhang Xiaobai running toward him with a bag of barbecue, he hurriedly dodged. If she were to be hugged by Zhang Xiaobai, the bag of barbecue in Zhang Xiaobai's hand would definitely leave a few big grease marks on her back. After dodging Zhang Xiaobai's bear hug, Lin Yuan asked the others. You terminated the contract with the Extreme Guild Club. They didn't make things difficult for you, right? Zhang Xiaobai's face turned a little angry when he heard this. The Extreme Guild Club wants to see Xaning, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran awake. They actually don't want to let the 3 of them go. Fortunately, I was quick-witted enough to cancel the contract in advance. The leader also signed the contract. All that's left is for the 3 of them to confirm. Otherwise, if the 3 of them are really detained by the Extreme Club until the end of the season, they would undoubtedly miss the transfer window. If that's the case, the 3 of them won't be able to join the Dome Club this year. As Zhang Xiaobai spoke, Xaning, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran's expressions turned ugly. Obviously, he was extremely disappointed with the Extreme Guild Club's actions. Although Tan Ran was already 22 years old, she still had a baby face. People would even believe that he was a 13 or 14-year-old Shota. Among the boys he could be considered an extremely cute existence. Tan Ran stepped forward and asked with a pout. Yuan, where's the adorable genius? While speaking, Tan Ran secretly rubbed her fingers, and Lin Yuan immediately knew that Tan Ran wanted to stroke the cat. Recently, Genius had been concocting the spirit fluid in the spirit lock spatial zone and had been busy for a long time. When Tan Ran mentioned Genius, he summoned it out of the spirit lock spatial zone. Genius had a good relationship with Zhang Xiaobai, Xianing, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran. Seeing the four of them, Genius immediately greeted them in a childish voice. Genius' appearance caused the four of them to have stars in their eyes. Looking at the 5 fluffy tails behind Genius, the four of them knew that Genius had evolved during this period of time. Zhang Xiaobai wanted to hug Genius, but Genius dodged Zhang Xiaobai's perverted hands. She looked at the barbecue in Zhang Xiaobai's hand in disgust and jumped towards Tan Ran, who was opening her arms to her. Tan Ran hugged Genius and gave it a gentle massage. It was so comfortable that it started snoring. She looked like an experienced cat lover. It was a pity that Tan Ran's current cat stroking technique was trained on the lava hippopotamus and the gluttonous hippopotamus. After leading everyone into the house, Zhang Xiaobai asked Lin Yuan, "Why don't I see the mother of bloodbath? Where is it?" While Zhang Xiaobai was asking the question, the mother of bloodbath had already appeared on the golden bellwood suspension ladder. Lin Yuan held his forehead with his hand. Zhang Xiaobai had formed a foodie alliance with the mother of bloodbath during his visits to the manor. Although the mother of bloodbath didn't eat things like spears, eggs, cannons or kidneys, it didn't eat them. However, the mother of bloodbath loved the roasted cicada pupae, grasshopper, roasted cricket, and even roasted snake that Zhang Xiaobai had brought over. Therefore, every time he came, Zhang Xiaobai would bring a bag of strange barbecue for the mother of bloodbath. After everyone sat down and chatted for a while, Lin Yuan asked Zhang Xiaobai, "What is the good thing you said you would show me on the phone?" Zhang Xiaobai winked at Xianing, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran. Xianing, Lu Pinru, Tan Ran, and Zhang Xiaobai urged their spiritual energy at the same time. Lin Yuan only saw 4 willpower runes shoot out from their spiritual energy at the same time. Zhang Xiaobai, Xianing, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran had comprehended willpower runes. Lin Yuan was naturally happy for them. These 4 willpower runes could indeed be called good stuff. With these 4 willpower runes, Zhang Xiaobai, Xianing, Tan Ran, and Lu Pinru could each have a fantasy breed Fae in this year's S tournament. This was also a great thing for the Dome Club. After looking at the 4 willpower runes comprehended for a moment, Lin Yuan's face suddenly revealed a shocked expression. Lin Yuan found that the willpower contained in the 4 willpower runes were generally the same. Even if there were some subtle differences, they were almost negligible. They were the kind of willpower that saw hope in adversity. Not only was Lin Yuan surprised, but even Master Hong Shen and the mother of bloodbath widened their eyes. Each fantasy breed Fae could be called a unique existence because of the willpower runes. But now that Zhang Xiaobai and the others had comprehended 4 nearly identical willpower runes, if they fused with the same Fae, it was very likely to create 4 nearly identical fantasy breed Faes. The Radiance Federation's major city guards, Guild Alliance and even Spirit Guards all had their own standard Faes. Standard Faes generally had specific functions, even though a single standard phase ability wasn't strong. Although a single standard phase ability was not strong, they could often carry out effective cooperation. For example, the hot spring slugs that the Indigo Azure Guard had asked Lin Yuan to help enhance could fuse with several hot spring slugs. During the fusion process, they could share the same kind of injuries and even multiply the healing ability. The Plum Rain Heart Wall propped up by the Guild Alliance's standard Fae, the Plum Rain Muscle, could also be superimposed. The Plum Rain Heart Wall produced by 2 Plum Rain Muscles was far more powerful than the Plum Rain Heart Wall produced by a single Plum Rain Muscle. However, the cooperation of these standard Faes could only be maintained before becoming a fantasy breed. After becoming a fantasy breed, these standard Faes that were originally the same would become completely different existences. Not only could their abilities not cooperate with each other like before, but they might even affect each other. End of this chapter. Chapter 750. This was also the reason why Indigo Azure City and the Guild Alliance's experts contracted standard Faes had never been promoted to fantasy breed. Just like the Plum Rain Wall Snail's savior who had contracted the Barbarian Snake Club's Meng Su. If the 4 of them comprehended different willpower runes, then Lin Yuan could enhance the Fae that was most compatible with their willpower runes based on each person's affinity with the Fae. However, now that the 4 of them had comprehended the same willpower rune, Lin Yuan felt that he could not waste this coincidental state of mind comprehension. Zhang Xiaobai's group of 4 might not have realized what comprehending 4 nearly identical willpower runes meant. However, as creation masters Lin Yuan and Master Hong Shen were very clear. Lin Yuan looked at Master Hong Shen and asked, "Master Hong Shen, which item do you think is suitable for the willpower runes that the 4 of them comprehended?" Master Hong Shen immediately understood the meaning behind Lin Yuan's words. Master Hongshin had watched Zhang Xiaobai and the others grow up. Master Hongshin could be said to have a very good understanding of their contracted phase and their affinity with them. Zhang Xiaobai's current contracted phase were the Gale Clam and the Bloody Leech. Among them, the Gale Clam was an ordinary source-type life form that focused on defense. Zhang Xiaobai's Fey affinity direction was defense-type insect species phase. All of Lu Pinru's phase were contracted with the lustrous Weaver Silkworm, and her compatibility was with support-type insect species phase. Xianing had a power offense-type feline Fey affinity, while Tan Ran had a power offense-type hippopotamus-type Fey affinity. Among the four of them, only Zhang Xiaobai and Lu Pinru's Fey compatibility was similar. They were both compatible with insect species phase. However, they were two completely different directions among insect species phase. One was compatible with the support type, while the other was compatible with the defense type. According to Lin Yuan's plan, no phase could satisfy Zhang Xiaobai, Xianing, Tan Ran, and Lu Pinru at the same time. Therefore he couldn't choose the phase direction. Therefore Master Hongshin's target was source-type lifeforms. Master Hongshin said to Lin Yuan, "Young master, I feel that it is impossible to find a Fey that is suitable for 4 people to contract at the same time. Even if there are some lifestyle-type Feys that the 4 of us can form a contract together, even if the lifestyle-type Feys become fantasy breeds, they won't be useful in combat. I think it's more reliable to choose from source-type lifeforms." Upon hearing Master Hongshin's words, Lin Yuan nodded in agreement. Lin Yuan didn't expect that he and Master Hongshin would actually have the same thoughts. Just as Lin Yuan's eyes lit up when he suddenly thought of a source-type lifeform, he heard Master Hongshin say, "That's right. Among the source-type lifeforms, there is a source-type lifeform called the Source Seed. Back then, 3 were found in a dimensional rift. It is a pity that source-type lifeforms like the Source Seed are simply too weak. After that, I have never heard of another source-type lifeform like the Source Seed appearing in any dimensional rift." Lin Yuan was stunned by Master Hongshin's sudden sentiment. He didn't understand why Master Hongshin would suddenly mention the Source Seed. However, in Lin Yuan's opinion, there was no difference between Master Hongshin mentioning the Source Seed and Red Thorn. This was because Red Thorn had evolved from a Source Seed. Red Thorn's current form could be said to be the product of the Source Seed's potential and Lin Yuan's decision. Lin Yuan didn't think that Red Thorn was weak. On the contrary, he felt that Red Thorn was simply too strong. Now, the silver/fantasy breed Red Thorn could firmly block a Class 1 dimensional rift. As long as Red Thorn was around, no matter how many Class 1 dimensional rifts opened, the dimensional lifeforms that gushed out would just be fertilizer for Red Thorn. Apart from Red Thorn, Lin Yuan had never heard of a silver/fantasy breed Fey in the Radiance Federation that could single-handedly deal with the insect sea that descended from the Class 1 alien insect dimensional rift. No matter how strong the other silver/fantasy breed Feys were, they would still be stacked to death by the endless insect sea. Furthermore, after Red Thorn's mutated gill-shaped flower petals, it wasn't just limited to land battles. It could also get involved in sea battles. Coupled with Red Thorn's Eye of Relinquished's powerful endurance and Spore Reproduction's expansion ability, Red Thorn could rapidly spread out its formation and engage in prolonged battles. Such a Fey was actually considered weak by others. However, Lin Yuan wouldn't take the initiative to tell others that Red Thorn had evolved from a Source Seed. After Lin Yuan had a large number of resources on hand, he had specially posted on the Star Web's Rare Lifeform Pavilion that he wanted to purchase a Source Seed. Lin Yuan's offer was extremely high, and it was more than enough to exchange for a fairy source-type lifeform. However, no one had contacted Lin Yuan. This meant that the Source Seed had never appeared in the dimensional rift again. Otherwise, Lin Yuan would really want to purchase a few more Source Seeds to nurture. Even though Lin Yuan didn't know why Master Hongshin would suddenly lament the weakness of the Source Seed, he still retorted a little on account of Red Thorn. If the Source Seed is nurtured properly, it should be very strong. After all, there are no weak source-type lifeforms. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Master Hongshin subconsciously wanted to touch his beard. But after touching it, Master Hongshin remembered that he had already trimmed his beard under the manor's chief housekeeper when Yu's suggestion. "Young master, you don't know this. After I found out that there is a source-type item that can grow according to my will, I had the intention of getting a Source Seed. In the end, after I spent a lot of my savings and spent a lot of effort to buy a Source Seed, I heard that an ordinary person who contracted a Source Seed had only managed to cultivate it into a vine that could help lift heavy objects. Even if it's an ordinary source-type life form, it can't be cultivated just to lift heavy objects, right? If I want to lift heavy objects, I can just hire an assistant. I don't need to specially cultivate a source-type life form. I will put the source seed aside for the time being. Later on, I heard that some scholars studied the vines cultivated from the source seed and said that the source seed's evolution ability wasn't strong. I completely gave up on the idea of nurturing the source seed and threw it into the spirit storage box. If I hadn't thought of the same source-type life form, I wouldn't have thought of trash like the species of origin. After hearing Master Hong Shin's words, Lin Yuan's brows twitched violently. Lin Yuan asked Master Hong Shin anxiously, "Can you still find the source seed that you bought back then?" When Master Hong Shin heard Lin Yuan asking about the source seed, he carefully rummaged through his diamond face storage box. After rummaging for a while, a gray-stained green seed appeared in Master Hong Shin's hand. When Master Hong Shin saw the dust on the source seed, he quickly wiped it off in embarrassment. The first time was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 751. Then he handed over the source seed to Lin Yuan and said, "All right. If young master is interested in source seeds, I will give this source seed to young master. Young master can study it." Master Hong Shin naturally saw Lin Yuan's eagerness for source-type life forms after hearing about the source seed. However, Master Hong Shin could not understand why Lin Yuan would be so interested in something as useless as the source seed. After Master Hong Shin took out the source seed, Lin Yuan's leaf-shaped diamond face storage box turned upside down. Through the bloodline contract, Lin Yuan could sense Red Thorn's desire for the source seed that Master Hong Shin had just taken out. It was as if it desperately wanted to absorb the ungerminated source seed into its body and evolve it. Lin Yuan received the source seed from Master Hong Shin. Lin Yuan had originally planned to nurture a plant species Fei according to his own ideas. However, since Red Thorn had such a great need for this source seed, Lin Yuan dispelled the intention to nurture another plant species Fei. Instead, he decided to give this ungerminated source seed to Red Thorn. He wanted to see what would happen after Red Thorn devoured the source seed. Originally, when Red Thorn sensed that the source seed had yet to germinate, it had blown the dozen red gill-shaped petals in the leaf-shaped face storage box. He was like a naughty child who was clamoring to buy toys from his parents. After obtaining Lin Yuan's assurance and knowing that it could obtain the source seed, Red Thorn no longer blew the gill-shaped petals. Instead, he played with the acid corrosion queen bee. He spat the acid corrosion queen bee out of the mouth of Relinquish and swallowed it. After comforting Red Thorn, Lin Yuan told Master Hong Shen about his thoughts. During the active phase of the dimensional rift, some similar source-type lifeforms were found in the swamp dimensional rift near Wind Mist City. When Master Hong Shen heard Lin Yuan's words, he grinned awkwardly. Previously, when Master Hong Shen's soul was injured, it was unknown when it would suddenly flare up. Therefore, Master Hong Shen was unable to log into the star web. In the past, Master Hong Shen might be a pinnacle Class 3 creation master, but he had always been out of touch with society. Even though his soul had recovered, Master Hong Shen still hadn't developed the habit of logging onto the star web to understand all sorts of current news. Master Hong Shen had never heard of the same source-type lifeforms appearing in the swamp dimensional rift near Wind Mist City. When Lin Yuan saw that Master Hong Shen did not reply, he knew that Master Hong Shen did not know what the source-type lifeform was. In order to prevent Master Hong Shen from feeling awkward, Lin Yuan immediately spoke. In the swamp dimensional rift near Wind Mist City, a total of 10 source-type Titan venomous creatures have been discovered. It is very likely that we will find more Titan venomous snakes in the swamp dimensional rifts in the future. In fact, the reason Lin Yuan knew about the source-type Titan centipede was not because he paid much attention to the Radiance Federation's current news. It was because Gao Feng had casually mentioned it when he was on the phone with Gao Feng. Lin Yuan heard it but didn't take it to heart. But now, it seemed like the source-type Titan venomous centipede was undoubtedly very suitable for Zhang Xiaobai, Xianing, Tan Ran and Lu Pinru. When Gao Feng had mentioned the Titan venomous centipede, he had complained to Lin Yuan that the prerequisites for contracting the Titan venomous centipede were very difficult. In order to use a large amount of demon blood in the Medusa demon's hair, a spirit fluid made from the Medusa demon's eyeball was also required. The main function of this spirit fluid was to allow the spirit chi professional to have a certain resistance to petrification. After the contractor drank this spirit fluid concocted by a Class 4 creation master, they would need to use their tears to fuse with the demon blood in the Medusa demon's hair. Under the catalysis of pure spirit chi, the source-type Titan venomous centipede would break out of the eggshell. Then, it would use the dual contract method of blood contract and spiritual contract to contract the source-type Titan venomous centipede. The contractor would drink the anti-petrification potion mainly to resist the petrification ability of the Titan venomous centipede's eyes. With so many prerequisites, it was very cumbersome. It was no wonder that Gao Feng complained to Lin Yuan about the difficulty of contracting the source-type Titan venomous centipede. First of all, the Medusa demon was a humanoid life form in the swamp dimensional rift and had the strength of a Class 6 dimensional life form. Although a Class 6 Medusa dimensional life form's strength was only equivalent to a Diamond Fae, it could only appear in Class 4 swamp dimensional rifts. It was a very rare and mysterious dimensional life form. Every Medusa demon would be surrounded by a large number of high-class swamp dimensional life forms. After the Medusa demon died, its body would rapidly petrify and turn into a pile of gravel. Therefore, in order to obtain the demon blood in the Medusa demon's hair, one had to capture the Medusa demon alive under the protection of a large group of swamp dimensional life forms. At the same time, the Class 4 potion and pure spirit chi required the assistance of a Class 4 creation master. In the Radiance Federation, it was very difficult to find a Class 4 creation master to serve one on the spot. Wind Mist City was ranked in the lower middle among the 32 major cities, and it wasn't a wealthy major city. However, the Gao family was the wealthiest family in Wind Mist City and the only elite faction in the city. They had an absolute status in Wind Mist City. Therefore, the Gao family had obtained a total of 8 source-type Titan venomous snakes found in the Wind Mist City swamp dimensional rift. According to Gao Feng, the Gao family had already hatched 3 Titan venomous snakes. All 3 Titan venomous snakes had the same normal ability, which was snake colony symbiosis. Snake colony symbiosis meant that each Titan venomous snake within the range could help the other Titan venomous snakes to share the damage and share life. No matter how severe the damage to a Titan venomous snake was, it would be the same. As long as there were other Titan venomous snakes within the range, they would prosper together and suffer together. According to Gao Feng, when the Titan venomous snakes hatched, their bodies could reach a length of 7 meters. One of the Gao family's gold Titan venomous snakes was close to 40 meters long. It was a massive creature worthy of the name Titan. Such a huge body proved that the Titan venomous snake's physical attack and defense were very strong. If Zhang Xiaobai and the others could be equipped with Titan venomous snakes, the Titan venomous snakes, which already had extremely strong survivability, would have an exponential increase in damage tolerance. Lin Yuan didn't dare to say anything else, but if Zhang Xiaobai and the others contracted the Titan venomous snakes and were strengthened by Master Hong Shen, in the S tournament, unless the Radiance 100 sequence members and the A-grade guild club's main force members exposed their hidden strength. Otherwise, no one would be able to unleash an attack that could instantly kill 4 Titan venomous snakes. The second was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 752. The Titan Chi's massive body meant that it had to rely on its body as its main attack method. However, the Titan Chi's reckless attack method was not cumbersome, as its eyes had the ability to petrify. The petrification ability could be considered a kind of earth elemental damage method. When other life forms were petrified, a large amount of cursed earth elemental energy would invade their bodies. It would cause the other elements in the life form's bodies to be affected by the earth elemental mutation. The Titan Chi's powerful body coupled with the petrification effect of its eyes could be said to be both defensive and offensive. As a Chi life form, the Titan Chi's snake body could also be controlled. The Titan Chi's control itself could actually be considered the Titan Chi's strongest attack method, strangulation damage. If Zhang Xiaobai, Xianing, Tan Ran, and Lu Pinru were to participate in the S tournament, any member of the main team could cooperate with Zhang Xiaobai and the others. The 4 Titan Chi's massive bodies could more easily resist physical and elemental damage, providing an extremely strong defensive cover. Master Hong Shen had never heard of the source-type Titan Chi, let alone have any understanding of it. However, Master Hong Shen completely believed in Lin Yuan's judgment. Given Master Hong Shen's understanding of Lin Yuan, since Lin Yuan had mentioned the Titan Chi then, Lin Yuan should have a 90% chance of obtaining the source-type Titan Chi. Zhang Xiaobai, Xianing, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran sat on the water rhinoceros leather sofa, and their eyes involuntarily became a little moist. The 4 of them had shown Lin Yuan the willpower rune they had comprehended to share the joy of comprehending the willpower rune with their good friends. At the same time as their future teammates, they had also expressed to Lin Yuan their improvement during this period of time. However, they did not expect Lin Yuan to immediately start to consider suitable phase for them after learning that they had comprehended the willpower rune. Zhang Xiaobai and the others were originally friends who had entrusted their lives to Lin Yuan. When their lives were on the line, they had entrusted their backs to each other. Could even be said that Lin Yuan was their savior. If not for Lin Yuan's contracted Fey Red Thorn in Millstone Town, the four of them would likely have died in the battle to defend Millstone Town. If Lin Yuan had not issued an invitation a few days ago, the four of them were destined not to have a new goal and hope on the mountaintop. He had comprehended the willpower rune. Zhang Xiaobai, Xaning, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran were all reserved people. As future teammates, the four of them would not reject Lin Yuan's good intentions. In fact, before they came, they had already decided to help Lin Yuan deal with some trivial matters in the Dome Guild Club as much as possible. The four of them were veterans who had participated in the S tournament many times. Even though they had always been members of the reserve team, they understood the workings of a club guild very well. The operation of club guilds wasn't as simple as competing in the S tournament. The four of them were confident that they could help Lin Yuan handle all the trivial matters of the Dome Club. Lin Yuan had already picked up his phone and was about to call Gao Feng. But then she remembered that Gao Feng's parents were right beside him. If she called Gao Feng would have to sneak out like a thief to answer the phone. He simply sent a text message to Gao Feng. Lin Yuan, Gao Feng, I'm interested in the Source-type Titan Venomous Centipede. Help me keep 4 of them. After sending the text message, Lin Yuan put down his cell phone. In less than 2 minutes, his cell phone rang. Lin Yuan took the phone and saw that Gao Feng had already replied. In Gao Feng's reply, Lin Yuan saw the following words. Gao Feng, brother, no problem. I'll inform the family and ask them to send me 4 uncontracted Titan Venomous Centipedes. I'll give them to you when we meet at the night conference. Lin Yuan smiled when he saw Gao Feng's text message. Lin Yuan realized that he and Gao Feng had a tacit understanding. When Gao Feng was in trouble and needed a Class 5 spirit craftsman, Lin Yuan would help him without hesitation. Now that he needed 4 Source-type lifeforms, Lin Yuan only informed Gao Feng. Gao Feng didn't even ask for a reward before helping Lin Yuan. This showed that the two of them had a lot of trust in each other. Otherwise, they wouldn't have agreed on a price for something that was worth tens of millions of Radiance dollars without even discussing it. After Lin Yuan and Gao Feng cooperated on a common emerging faction, Lin Yuan was responsible for the supply of Creation Master resources. Gao Feng was responsible for all operations of the faction apart from the Creation Master resources. The two of them didn't interfere with each other's domains, but when they encountered a problem and needed to make a decision, Gao Feng would look for Lin Yuan and Lin Yuan to discuss it together. In Lin Yuan's opinion, he and Gao Feng were already good partners with a tacit understanding. At the thought of Gao Feng's strength and Fey combination, Lin Yuan felt that he might be able to invite Gao Feng to join the Dome Guild Club. In Lin Yuan's understanding, Gao Feng's Fey combination could be called a blessing for the formation phase. For example, if Lu Jie's Insect Queen, Red Thorn, and the Source Sand could be assisted by Gao Feng's contracted Breeze Hibiscus and 2 Spirit Spring Lilies, then, be it Red Thorn, the Source Sand or Lu Jie's Insect Queen, they would be able to burst out with multiple times the combat power. Moreover, Gao Feng's contracted Yellow Spring Lilies also had a strong strategic significance and could maximize the team's fault tolerance. They could protect the main Fey from being destroyed by the opponent. Although Lin Yuan's main team was still short of 2 members, there was no lack of damage in the team. So far, Lin Yuan was a healing-type Spirit Chi professional, Chu Xiai and Zhang Xiaobai were defense-type Spirit Chi professionals, and Lu Pinru was a support-type Spirit Chi professional. Needless to say, Lin Yuan and Chu Xiai were boorish men with healing-type and defense-type skin. Compared to the job of a healing-type Spirit Chi professional and a defense-type Spirit Chi professional, their offensive abilities were clearly stronger. Zhang Xiaobai and Lu Pinru were still doing their jobs. However, once the Source-type Titan Venomous Centipede was contracted, the Dome Guild Club would immediately become a boorish man. It seemed that the team really needed a pure support like Gao Feng. Originally, Lin Yuan planned to wait until the Radiance 100 sequence test before talking to Gao Feng about this. In recent chats, Lin Yuan could hear that Gao Feng really wanted to join the club guild team to compete in the S tournament. Therefore, Lin Yuan decided to wait until the Nyx assembly to pull Gao Feng into the team with Lu Jie. Otherwise, if Gao Feng talked to other club guilds during this period and agreed to join them in advance, Lin Yuan would be regretful. Given Lin Yuan's high requirements for teammates, it would not be easy to find a teammate like Gao Feng. Chapter 3, End of this chapter. Chapter 753. In fact, Lin Yuan had chosen the Source-type Titan Venomous Viper for Zhang Xiaobai and the others not only because there were many Titan Venomous Vipers, but also because the normal ability Snakeherd Symbiosis was compatible with standard Fays. A very important reason why Lin Yuan had chosen the Titan Chi was that it was a huge Fey that focused on physical combat. It was very compatible with the willpower rune that Zhang Xiaobai and the others had comprehended. No one could be sure what the exclusive skill would be when a Fey fused with the willpower rune and became a fantasy breed Fey. However, Lin Yuan had so many fantasy breed Feys and had even helped Chu Ci promote 2 Feys into fantasy breeds. He already had his own understanding of the fusion of Feys and willpower runes. The willpower rune that Zhang Xiaobai and the others had comprehended to see hope in adversity was somewhat similar to the willpower rune that Lin Yuan had felt from the plants. In his opinion, when the willpower rune obtained hope in adversity fused with the Fey, it was very likely that there would be a regenerative exclusive skill. Compared to Feys that relied on elemental damage, this type of exclusive skill was more suitable for Feys that relied on physical combat. After deciding on the source-type lifeforms that Zhang Xiaobai and the others would contract, Lin Yuan said to Master Hong Shen, "You're right. Master Hong Shen, it will still take some time for the underground space to be completely completed. I will deal with the source-type Titan Centipede. Help Little White and the others to upgrade their Feys to the limits of Spirit Chi professionals." Zhang Xiaobai and the others' Feys had already been promoted to gold. With Master Hong Shen's ability as a Class 4 creation master, it wasn't difficult to promote a gold Phase quality to legend. Although there was still half a year until the new season of the S tournament, the Dome Club was a newly established guild. If they wanted to participate in the S tournament, they would have to participate in the long guild round-robin tournament after the end of the S tournament season. Only by standing out in the guild round-robin tournament would one qualify to participate in the S tournament's knockout round. Lin Yuan, Lu Jie, and Chu Ci certainly did not have time to waste on the round-robin and elimination rounds before the S rank. After nurturing Zhang Xiaobai and the other 3, the round-robin and elimination matches of the Dome Guild Club would be left to them. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's instructions, Master Hong Shen stood up and spoke to Zhang Xiaobai and the others energetically. "Let's go. Stay at my place for a while. I haven't cleaned up my new manor since I bought it. During this period I will help the 4 of you enhance your face. In return, the 4 of you will help me tidy up the manor." After saying that, Master Hong Shen sighed in disdain. "My manor is too messy right now. I can't even set foot in it." Master Hong Shen didn't feel that there was anything to be embarrassed about publicly talking about how dirty and messy his manor was. However, in the ears of Zhang Xiaobai, Xaning, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran, their right eyelids twitched uncontrollably. Even Master Hong Shen said that it was a messy place. How messy could it be? However, the 4 of them had helped Master Hong Shen tidy up the treatment center many times over the past few years, so they could be considered to be familiar with it. Lu Pinru got up from the sofa and didn't walk toward Master Hong Shen, who was standing at the mansion's entrance. Instead, she walked to Lin Yuan's side and looked at him. He looked at Lin Yuan for a long time before replying. "Lin Yuan, I still have to thank you for healing my damaged soul. After you healed my damaged soul, I don't know why, but my spiritual energy mutated. My current spiritual energy intensity is 3 times stronger than before, and my spiritual energy is still slowly growing during this period." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan's eyes immediately widened in shock. Lu Pinru was a Spirit Chi professional who excelled in spiritual energy, and spiritual energy had always been her advantage. This was also why she could contract so many lustrous weaver silkworms. Lin Yuan's mind raced as he thought about the reason for Lu Pinru's spiritual energy mutation. Lin Yuan felt that Lu Pinru's spiritual energy mutation was very likely due to the spiritual stimulation caused by the damaged soul after the loss of the 5 senses. It could be said that Lu Pinru's damaged soul was a blessing in disguise. It allowed Lu Pinru to obtain such a great opportunity. If this opportunity was really as Lin Yuan guessed, then it was simply impossible for others to replicate. This was because the damage to the soul under the loss of the 5 senses would cause the spirit to be greatly stimulated. No one could grasp the level of spiritual energy stimulation. As long as the level was slightly wrong, it could cause one to become stupid and become a vegetable. Could even lead to immediate death. Lu Pinru's spiritual energy was now more than 3 times stronger than before, which meant that she could contract at least 3 times the number of lustrous weaver silkworms. Due to Lu Pinru's ability, all kinds of silk clothing were weaved by the lustrous weaver silkworm silk. A quantitative change would produce a qualitative change. If Lu Pinru contracted more than 10 lustrous weaver silkworms, she could casually open Pinru's wardrobe and throw out several pieces of Pinru's clothes. All kinds of silk clothing were consumables, and if they were damaged she could put on a new one. At the same time, a Fae could also wear multiple silk clothing in battle. When Lu Pinru was weak, the silk clothing's defensive ability was not remarkable. However, when Lu Pinru became stronger, her flexible support ability could even be comparable to Shi Su, who controlled the Silent Thunder armored crocodile to use 100 sets of thunder-attracting armor. At that moment, Lin Yuan and Lu Pinru were looking at each other. Looking at Lu Pinru's determined eyes, he did not understand what she meant. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Lu Pinru speak again. Lin Yuan, I want to follow you in the future. Even if I'm past the age to fight in the S tournament and can't participate in the S tournament, I want to stay in the guild club and be a staff member. Upon hearing Lu Pinru's words, Lin Yuan immediately understood what she meant. Lin Yuan revealed a helpless and sunny smile. He stood up and pulled Lu Pinru's hand to Zhang Xiaobai, Xaning and Tan Ran's side. He looked at the four of them and said, Our feelings have been proven in Millstone Town. I won't say any unnecessary words. Let's do our best in the S tournament in the future. After saying that, Lin Yuan extended his hand to the four of them, just like how Zhang Xiaobai, Xaning, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran had extended their hands to him back in Millstone Town. However, this time Lin Yuan's palm did not cover the other four's palms. Instead, he waited for the four of them to cover their palms. When the 5 palms covered each other tightly, 5 hearty smiles almost blinded Master Hong Shin's eyes. Master Hong Shin could not help but feel his blood boil at their friendship and persistence toward their dreams. At that moment, Master Hong Shin could not help but sigh. It was great to be young. First, end of this chapter. Chapter 754. Master Hong Shin left with Xaning, Zhang Xiaobai, Lu Pinru and Tan Ran. Lin Yuan had nothing to do, so he walked toward the hidden WRM lake. Lin Yuan had not seen Blackie for a few days. He did not know how Blackie, which had evolved into a spirit-tied black flood dragon, was doing in the hidden WRM lake. Before he reached the hidden WRM lake, Lin Yuan saw the azure blue in the distance. In the distance, many 3-star spirit craftsmen were building a pavilion on the Reflection Sun King Lotus that Master Hong Shin had advanced to Diamond X/Legend. Every spirit craftsman had a blueprint in their hands, which was specially drawn by Hu Quan. Every grade 3 spirit craftsman had to perfectly construct the pavilion according to the blueprint. Lin Yuan looked down at the hidden WRM lake and felt as though he was looking at the sky. The blue of the celestial river stones made the hidden WRM lake seem bottomless, only vast azure blue and pure. A few angelfish of bliss swam past Lin Yuan's eyes, creating a colorful ripple. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw a long shadow appear in the hidden WRM lake in the distance. Lin Yuan immediately knew that Blackie had sensed his arrival and was looking for him. Lin Yuan hurriedly ran 50 meters back before stopping. Otherwise, based on Lin Yuan's understanding of Blackie, he would not be able to escape being drenched. As expected, Blackie created a huge splash when it came out of the water. Even though Lin Yuan had retreated 50 meters back, his shoes were still wet from the splash. Looking at the 18-meter-long Blackie in front of him, Lin Yuan touched its neck helplessly. Lin Yuan didn't care about Little Black's wet shoes. He jumped onto Little Black's back and let Little Black carry him for a few rounds above the mansion. Since Master Hong Shin's mansion was next to Lin Yuan's, the forest and green mountain behind the mansion belonged to Lin Yuan. Therefore, the area that Blackie was taking Lin Yuan to patrol was much larger than before. Lin Yuan looked at the underground tunnel that was being constructed in the direction of the green mountain and said to Blackie, "Blackie, go down and take a look." Blackie, go down and take a look. Lin Yuan's arrival attracted the attention of the Class 3 spirit craftsman at the foot of the green mountain. Lin Yuan jumped down from Blackie and looked at the spirit craftsman closest to him. Where is Master Hu Quan? This Class 3 spirit craftsman was obviously a little slow. After being questioned by Lin Yuan for a long time, he answered in a muffled voice. Master has gone down to survey the terrain. After saying that, the slow-witted man lowered his head and continued with his original work, polishing sheet after sheet of seepage steel plates. The wooden man's reaction made Lin Yuan feel a little awkward. Lu Tong, who was moving the seepage steel plate not far away, immediately saw Lin Yuan's embarrassment. Lu Tong didn't expect that the legendary return from faraway mansion's young master would actually come here to inspect the work. He hurriedly jogged in front of Lin Yuan with a smile. "Young master, if there's anything you want to ask, just ask me. If you want to find master, I'll go down and help young master inform her." Lin Yuan was stunned by the sudden appearance of a Class 3 spirit craftsman. Lin Yuan was sure that he did not know the Class 3 spirit craftsman in front of him, but he could not deny that the appearance of this Class 3 spirit craftsman had indeed eased his embarrassment. Since Hu Quan was exploring the terrain underground, Lin Yuan just happened to come down to take a look. He naturally would not disturb Hu Quan's work. There's no need to look for Master Hu Quan. Are there enough oxygen-supplying phase in this underground space? Lu Tong had spoken to Lin Yuan because he wanted Lin Yuan to have an impression of him. She had never thought that Lin Yuan would take care of her. Or rather, it was unbelievable that Lin Yuan was so approachable. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Lu Tong replied meticulously. Young master, Master Hong Shen has sent 500 gold green oxygen sea anemones. The green oxygen sea anemone can provide oxygen for 2 hours even if it's out of water. There are about 150 spirit craftsmen working in the underground space. Therefore, the gold green oxygen sea anemones are very abundant. Lin Yuan listened to the Class 3 spirit craftsman's words and found that he was quite meticulous. Upon seeing that Hu Quan did not intend to come out for a while, Lin Yuan thanked the spirit craftsman who had been standing beside him and explaining the underground space's construction to him. He was ready to ride Little Black back to the manor. At that moment, Lu Tong was stunned by Lin Yuan's habitual thanks. For the sake of his spirit craftsmanship, Lu Tong had joined the Heavenly Craft Pavilion and acknowledged Hu Quan as his master. Whenever he had something to do, he would politely chat with Hu Quan, deepening Hu Quan's impression of him. As a result, Hu Quan could now call out Lu Tong's name. However, there were a total of over 500 3-star spirit craftsmen in the Heavenly Craft Pavilion. The addition of over 300 3-star spirit craftsmen made Lu Tong feel increasingly pressured. Since he had coincidentally met Lin Yuan today, Lu Tong had mustered his courage to strike up a conversation with Lin Yuan and answer one of his questions. He didn't expect to receive Lin Yuan's thanks, and this made Lu Tong's heart warm up. This was because Lu Tong not only knew Lin Yuan's courtesy from his thanks, but he also knew that Lin Yuan had good manners. At the same time, he also felt that Lin Yuan did not treat him as a servant. Instead, he treated him as an equal and respected him. Upon seeing Lin Yuan ride the huge flood dragon Fei in front of him, Lu Tong mustered up his courage and shouted at Lin Yuan. Young master, Lu Tong bids farewell to you. Upon hearing the Class 3 spirit craftsman bidding farewell to him, Lin Yuan turned around and waved at Lu Tong. He subconsciously remembered Lu Tong's name. Lu Tong watched as Lin Yuan rode away on the flood dragon Fei and clenched his fists to encourage himself. Among the Class 3 spirit craftsmen, his craftsmanship was considered rather solid, and he had a high chance of becoming a Class 4 spirit craftsman. Lu Tong was also very hard-working on his daily work and had done far more than other Class 3 spirit craftsmen in the open and in the dark. Lu Tong didn't believe that gold would always shine, but he firmly believed that opportunities would always be left for those who were prepared. Therefore, Lu Tong was always preparing, waiting for the day he could shine. After Lin Yuan returned to the mansion, he entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone and summoned Red Thorn from the leaf-shaped diamond Fei storage box. After Lin Yuan summoned Red Thorn, it immediately wrapped its thornless vine around Lin Yuan's wrist. Even though Red Thorn's movements were very light, it still made Lin Yuan feel as though his wrist was wrapped by an elephant's trunk. When Red Thorn's Ortet had become a fantasy breed, it had shed its killing tissues and did not have any killing power. However, after devouring a large number of dimensional lifeforms' flesh, the Ortet's power had become increasingly stronger. Red Thorn shook its vine at Lin Yuan and used the gill-shaped flower to simulate a voice. Lin Yuan, Red Thorn wants a good-looking bow in Red Thorn's body. When Lin Yuan heard that Red Thorn wanted a good-looking bow, he immediately took out a red ribbon and tied it to Red Thorn's smooth vine. However, when he heard Red Thorn say Red Thorn's body, Lin Yuan could not wrap his head around it for a moment. He did not understand what Red Thorn wanted by Red Thorn's body. The second part was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 755. Lin Yuan asked Red Thorn. Red Thorn, why are you here? What do you want your body for? Red Thorn replied timidly, it's that source seed in your hand. Lin Yuan, it's that source seed in your hand. Upon hearing Red Thorn's words, Lin Yuan immediately took out the ungerminated source seed. After Red Thorn had seen the source seed, Lin Yuan could sense its eagerness for the source seed through the bloodline that was connected to Red Thorn. It was as though Red Thorn's body was incomplete, and this ungerminated source seed was originally a part of Red Thorn's body. At that moment, Red Thorn was using its smooth vines to wrap around the ungerminated source seed and placed it in the spore cavity at the top of the mouth of Relinquish. At that moment, there was a sudden change and Red Thorn's entire plant shook violently. Immediately after, Lin Yuan felt a majestic plant energy spurting out from Red Thorn's spore cavity. This majestic plant energy quickly filled the mouth of Relinquish. Red Thorn fell into a deep slumber before it could leave any biological information under the majestic plant energy. Lin Yuan didn't panic when he saw the sudden change in Red Thorn's body and its sudden slumber. Red Thorn was clearly in a state of a benign metamorphosis. Lin Yuan carefully analyzed the Red Thorn's body that Red Thorn had mentioned for a long time, but he couldn't figure it out. Finally, Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check on the sleeping Red Thorn. Under True Data, Red Thorn was indeed in a state of metamorphosis. However, Red Thorn's slumber wasn't because it was absorbing the Source Seed's energy to metamorphose. Instead, it was because Red Thorn's transformation required incomplete special energy, and it had no choice but to stay in a deadlock state. If Lin Yuan didn't completely replenish the special energy required for the transformation, he would have to make Red Thorn give up on the chance to metamorphose. However, Lin Yuan wouldn't easily give up the opportunity for Red Thorn to metamorphose. However, Red Thorn's slumber had to be resolved as soon as possible. The Blood Brew Grapevine couldn't do without the eyes of Relinquish. The Blood Brew Grapevine had grown so many unripe Blood Brew grapes, and each main vine that bore Blood Brew grapes had 2 additional vines growing on it. Once the eye of Relinquish's energy supply was cut off, the Blood Brew Grapevine would quickly be unable to provide the nutrients it needed. Most of its main vines, auxiliary vines and unripened Blood Brew grapes would wither, to reduce the plant's consumption of flesh and blood energy. At that time, his efforts would be in vain, and it would delay the Mother of Bloodbath's advancement to Myth 3. Lin Yuan did not want to see such a situation. Lin Yuan racked his brains and made a bold guess, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Red Thorn had transformed because it had swallowed a Source Seed that had yet to germinate. Clearly, Red Thorn's transformation was related to the Source Seed. In other words, the special energy that Red Thorn needed was most likely the energy of the Source Seed. However, there were currently only 3 Source Seeds in the world. One had been enhanced into Red Thorn, and the other had been placed in the spore cavity by Red Thorn. The last Source Seed had already been strengthened into a vine by an ordinary person. After that ordinary person had died, the vine had also died due to the contract. However, the vine that had evolved from the Source Seed had been donated to the Fey Observer Guild by that ordinary person's family. It was now treated as a specimen and had been left in the Fey Observer Guild's warehouse. The only thing Lin Yuan could do now was to retrieve the vine that had grown from the Source Seed from the Fey Observer Guild for Red Thorn. After feeding it to Red Thorn, he would see if it could transform. Otherwise, Lin Yuan would not have any other methods. Lin Yuan immediately left the Spirit Lock spatial zone and headed to the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild. However, the Fey Observer Guild was not an ordinary place, let alone the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild. Since it was related to Red Thorn's transformation and the Mother of Bloodbath's evolution, Lin Yuan was determined to obtain the vine that had grown from the Source Seed. In order to easily and conveniently retrieve the vine that had been treated as a specimen in the Fey Observer Guild, Lin Yuan had to use something that he had never used before. Lin Yuan's hand shook, and a plain brocade box appeared in his hand. The surface of the brocade box was covered with a layer of moonlight silk, and the moonlight silk was faintly emitting a few wisps of moonlight radiance. Lin Yuan opened the brocade box and took out a Class 2 Creation Master crest that was carved with a moon totem. He removed the standard Class 2 Creation Master crest that was originally worn on his chest and pinned the Class 2 Creation Master crest with the moon totem on his chest. The Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild didn't allow flying Feys to stay. Therefore, when Lin Yuan arrived at the opposite side of the Fey Observer Guild, he immediately jumped off the reserved flying Fey and prepared to walk into the guild. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw an elderly man shouting loudly at the entrance of the Fey Observer Guild. Fey Observer. 1-star to 3-star test information. It is more complete than the information that can be bought on the Star Web. 5,000 Federation dollars per set. Only 10 sets are sold today. First come, first served. The elderly man shouted loudly at the entrance for a long time, but the people entering and exiting the Fey Observer Guild rarely looked at him. Occasionally, someone would look at the old man with a rather angry expression, as if the old man had done something heinous and unforgivable. When Lin Yuan saw their indignant gazes, he couldn't help but feel that if this wasn't the entrance of the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Association, these people would definitely beat up this old man. When the old man saw Lin Yuan, he immediately planned to greet him and promote his Fey Observer's information. However, the elder immediately noticed the inconspicuous moon totem on the Class 2 Creation Master crest on Lin Yuan's chest. The old man's expression shook, and he immediately put on a serious expression. His temperament suddenly changed. The old man immediately chuckled. Thousand-faced illusionary moth, dispel the thousand-faced state. Upon hearing this voice, Lin Yuan, who was about to enter the Fey Observer Guild, was shocked. At this moment, the old man's voice was no longer that hoarse voice from before. Instead, it was a gentle and steady female voice. Then, a black moth with thousands of patterns on its body flew out of the old man's body. The old man's body began to change like a mirage. In the end, it turned into a woman in a plain green dress who was about 40 years old. Lin Yuan was flabbergasted as he looked at the living person in front of him. Lin Yuan didn't know, and he didn't dare to ask, how did an old man turn into a middle-aged woman? This was too scary in broad daylight. Chapter 3, End of this chapter. Chapter 756. At that moment, the old man turned into a middle-aged woman in a green dress and quickly walked to Lin Yuan. The Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild's president, Lan Qin, greets my lord. Just as the middle-aged woman spoke, the black thousand-faced illusionary moth with thousands of mirror-like patterns on its body landed in her hair like an ornament. If it wasn't for the thousand-faced illusory moth flapping its wings occasionally, no one would have realized that the thousand-faced illusory moth was a living creature. Lin Yuan was stunned by the sudden change. He didn't expect such an unforeseen event to happen at the entrance of the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild. He didn't expect that the person who used the thousand-faced illusory butterfly to disguise as an old man to sell information on Class 1 to Class 3 Fey Observers was actually the president of the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild. Lin Yuan bowed to the middle-aged woman in a green dress. Junior Lin Yuan greets Lord President. While speaking, Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check on the thousand-faced illusory moth on the head of the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild president, Lan Qin. Lin Yuan found that the thousand-faced illusory moth was only at Platinum 8. After becoming a B-rank Spirit Chi professional, Lin Yuan's misty spiritual power had condensed into a liquid state, and his perception of spiritual power had become much stronger. Lin Yuan could already sense the spiritual power intensity of other Spirit Chi professionals through the circulation of spiritual power in his body. This was also an ability that all Spirit Chi professionals comprehended after reaching B-rank. Lin Yuan could sense that Lan Qin was a B-rank Spirit Chi professional like him. However, Lan Qin's accumulation of spiritual power was much more robust than Lin Yuan's. It wasn't something that a newly promoted B-rank Spirit Chi professional like Lin Yuan's could compare with. Even so, Lan Qin was still a B-rank Spirit Chi professional at her age. It was obvious that Lan Qin's endowment as a combat class Spirit Chi professional was very weak. However, the spiritual ingredient observer's ability had nothing to do with combat ability. The spiritual ingredient observer's mind grasped knowledge about phase and source-type lifeforms. It was a lifestyle class Spirit Chi occupation. In this world where martial arts were respected, Lan Qin was able to become the president of the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild despite her endowment for combat. She must be a Class 5 Fey Observer. Furthermore, he was an outstanding individual among the Class 5 Fey Observers. Although it was Lin Yuan's first time meeting Lan Qin, he had long heard of her. When Lin Yuan had first logged onto Star Web, he had heard of Lan Qin's name. The Class 5 Fey Observer Lan Qin might not be a creation master and couldn't nurture Feys, but she was known as the mother of the Master Dragon. Through a large amount of research, the Feys stimulated the thin dragon species bloodline in their bodies to transform into dragon species Feys, and the dragon species Feys constantly tempered their bloodline to evolve into main dragon species Feys. Lan Qin had determined the necessary factors for the dragon species Feys bloodline evolution. It was also because of Lan Qin's research that the number of main dragon species Feys in the Radiance Federation had increased. There was no limit to one's mastery of knowledge in one's lifetime. Even if one's lifespan was limited, being able to master a single type of knowledge in one's lifetime was already a very impressive feat. Creation masters had to concoct spirit liquids to enhance Feys, so they naturally had to have a grasp of the knowledge lifestyles of Fey Observer and Spiritual Ingredient Analyst. However, every profession had its own specialization, and the Fey observation and analysis knowledge that creation masters possessed were usually inferior to the same grade Fey Observer and Spiritual Ingredient Analyst. Behind the supreme glory of being able to concoct spirit ingredients to enhance Feys, scholars, Fey Observers, and Spiritual Ingredient Analysts had contributed a lot. In fact, many of the spirit liquid's formulas were guessed by scholars, Fey observers, and spiritual ingredient analysts. However, these guesses needed to be verified by creation masters. In fact, Lin Yuan was rather surprised that Lan Qin, the president of the Fey Observer Guild, had addressed him as Lord. However, this form of address also allowed Lin Yuan to have a deeper understanding of the Moon Empress status. Lin Yuan had brought along the Creation Master crest that the Moon Empress had given him so that he could conveniently obtain source seeds from the Fey Observer Guild as specimens. Lan Qin had obviously seen the Creation Master crest with the Moon Totem on Lin Yuan's chest and knew of Lin Yuan's identity. As the Moon Empress disciple, Lan Qin had addressed him as Lord from the bottom of her heart. It showed how much respect Lan Qin had for the Moon Empress. Otherwise, as the president of the Fey Observer Guild, Lan Qin could simply pretend that she didn't know of Lin Yuan's arrival. There was no need for her to show up and pay attention to him. Although Lan Qin had addressed him as Lord, Lin Yuan wouldn't put on the airs of the Moon Empress disciple. Lin Yuan also sincerely paid his respect to Lan Qin, who was a Class 5 Fey observer with profound knowledge. When Lan Qin saw Lin Yuan greeting her with a bow, she quickly reached out to gently support Lin Yuan and spoke in a warm voice. Lan Qin isn't worthy of such a bow. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan's mouth twitched a little awkwardly. This junior isn't worthy of being addressed as Lord by Master. Hearing this, Lan Qin revealed a gentle smile. Then I shall address you as Your Highness. Your Highness must have something to do at the Fey Observer Guild. I shall bring Your Highness in first. If you need anything you can contact me directly. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded without being bashful and bowed to Lan Qin. Then I shall trouble Master Lan Qin. When Lin Yuan followed Lan Qin into the royal capital's Fey Observer Guild, the people at the entrance couldn't help but stare with their mouths wide open. Most of these people were here to participate in the Fey Observer test. The Fey Observer test wasn't as strict as the Creation Master test, although there was a gap between each test. If one didn't pass the previous Fey Observer test, they would be able to participate in the next Fey Observer test after 1 month. It wasn't like the Creation Master test, which was only allowed once a year. Therefore, the entrance of the royal capital's Fey Observer Guild was always very lively. Many people would come once a month to participate in the Fey Observer test like clocking in at work. Even if one could participate in the Fey Observer test 12 times a year, the test questions weren't simple. Many of the questions were very unconventional, and even a brainiac who had thoroughly understood the Fey Observer's information might fail if he wasn't careful. Every time these people came for the test, they would see an old man at the entrance tirelessly promoting the information of 1-star to 3-star Fey observers. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 757. The old man's information was indeed cheaper than the star webs, and many people had bought it. However, after these people went home and checked the old man's materials, they decisively gave up on the old man's materials. This was because the old man's information was 30% more than the Fey Observer's information on the star web. Normal people wouldn't be able to learn the Fey Observer's information on the star web, let alone this old man's information. Now, everyone knew that this old man was Master Lan Qin in disguise. Many people couldn't help but exclaim when Master Lan Qin entered the Fey Observer Association's entrance. Fuck, that terrible old man is actually Master Lan Qin. Fortunately, I didn't act rashly and ask that terrible old man to refund my money. Damn it, I didn't expect my goddess, Master Lan Qin, to be right under my nose. I actually didn't know. I can't take it anymore. I'm going into seclusion for 3 months to learn the information that Master Lan Qin sold me. Even if I can't pass the Class 2 Fey Observer exam after 3 months, at least I won't have negative marks deducted. At that moment there was a weak voice in the crowd. Hey, don't you feel that the youth beside Master Lan Qin looks familiar? He is the one at the All-Star match. Before the weak voice could finish, it was drowned out by a series of even louder exclamations. The All-Star match might only have 200,000 tickets, but apart from the 200,000 spectators that went to the Radiant Light Palace to watch the All-Star match, the Star Web also had the All-Star match's live broadcast and recording. The All-Star match was the warm-up before the tournament finals, and it could be considered a carnival for the Radiance Federation during the new year. Therefore, most of the people in the Radiance Federation had watched the All-Star match's live broadcast or recording, and they naturally had a deep impression of Lin Yuan's performance. However, Lin Yuan's attire was different from the attire he wore when he came to the Fey Observer Association, so he wasn't immediately recognized. Everyone originally felt that Lin Yuan looked familiar, and now that someone reminded them, they immediately recognized him. Lin Yuan walked beside Master Lan Qin and told her about his plan to come to the royal capital's Fey Observer Association. Master Lan Qin, I remember that the royal capital's Fey Observer Association has a rule. Feys or source-type life forms that are recorded as specimens by the Fey Observer Guild will be stored in the guild for half a year. Then you can use specimens that the Fey Observer Guild hasn't recorded before or specimens of the same value to exchange. Upon hearing that, Master Lan Qin immediately knew the purpose of his trip. Grandmaster Lan Qin said, "That's right. Does your highness have something to exchange? If there's anything you want to exchange, I'll send someone to arrange it immediately." During this period of time, many of the top factions have come to the royal capital. Many of them will come to the Fey Observer Association to exchange Feys or source-type life forms for specimens. Therefore, during this period of time, the Feys and source-type life forms used as specimens in the guild are changing very quickly. Although the Fey Observer Association specimens are publicly available on Star Web, it is likely that many of the Feys and source-type life forms that were previously publicly available are gone. But your highness doesn't have to worry. The Fey Observer Guild's Feys and source-type life forms as specimens are much richer than before. When Lin Yuan heard Grandmaster Lan Qin's words, he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Lin Yuan knew that the source seed that had developed into a vine-like life form had been stored as a specimen in the Fey Observer Association for a long time. If the source seed was swapped and used for destructive research, it would be too late even if Lin Yuan found out who had swapped it. He could only choose to give up on Red Thorn's metamorphosis opportunity. Grandmaster Lan Qin, the only purpose of my visit to the Fey Observer Association is the source seed. Lin Yuan's voice was very solemn and sincere, allowing Lan Qin to immediately feel the source seed's importance to Lin Yuan. However, when Lan Qin heard Lin Yuan's emphasis on the source seed, she frowned slightly. Lan Qin's frown wasn't because she knew that the source seed was no longer in the guild, but because she didn't have any impression of a source-type life form like the source seed. As a Class 5 Fey observer, Grandmaster Lan Qin had to interact with too many Feys and source-type life forms. Grandmaster Lan Qin didn't have a photographic memory like Genius. It was especially so for a dead source-type life form like the source seed, which didn't seem to have any evolution potential. It naturally wouldn't leave a deep impression. In fact, if it wasn't for the uniqueness of a source-type life form like the source seed, it wouldn't even have the qualifications to be recorded as a specimen in the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Association. Your Highness, if the source seed is in the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Association, I will definitely send it to Your Highness. After hearing Grandmaster Lan Qin's guarantee, Lin Yuan nodded seriously and said, Your Highness, the source seed is very important to me. Master Lan Qin, the source seed is very important to me. I hope that Master Lan Qin can help me investigate it as soon as possible. Even if the source seed has really been swapped, I hope that Grandmaster Lan Qin can tell me which faction has swapped the source seed. I will also think of a way to exchange the source seed back. Lin Yuan knew that the Fey Observer Association's management of specimens wasn't very strict. Many of the association's Fey observers had the authority to use the equivalent exchange method to exchange Feys or source-type life forms that were used as specimens. The Fey Observer Guild even encouraged the major factions to exchange large batches of Feys and source-type life forms in the guild. This was because it could always maintain the freshness of the Feys and source-type life forms in the Fey Observer Guild, allowing the many Fey observers to always have topics to study. There was no need to spend money to purchase Feys and source-type life forms for research. Therefore, Lin Yuan was really afraid that the vines that the source seed had developed would be traded away at some point in time. Lin Yuan's only consolation was that the source seed's vines were useless in the eyes of ordinary people. No one would be willing to use resources to exchange for the source seed. At that moment, Lin Yuan and Master Lan Qin had reached the top floor of the Fey Observer Guild. Lan Xian said to Lin Yuan, Let's go to my observation room and sit for a while. I'll personally ask my assistant to check for you. While speaking, Lan Qin had already stopped in her tracks. She opened a door embedded in the wall. Lan Qin said to the woman who was cleaning the observation room, Fan, go to the warehouse and check if there are source-type life forms like source-type life forms. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 758. After that, Lan Qin hurriedly instructed, If you find it, use the highest authority to bring the source seed to my observation room. When the woman named Fan heard Lan Qin's instructions, she quickly put down the cleaning tools in her hands and looked up to see Lan Qin and Lin Yuan beside her. Fan hurriedly bowed to Lan Qin and Lin Yuan before saying, "President, I'll do it immediately." Fan then immediately walked out of Lan Qin's observation room. After Fan left, Lin Yuan sized up Master Lan Qin's observation room. Lin Yuan found that Master Lan Qin's observation room was very simple, and the decoration style was abnormally tough without any unnecessary decorations. He found that Master Lan Qin's observation room was very simple, and the decoration style was abnormally tough without any unnecessary decorations. Lin Yuan found that Master Lan Qin's observation room was very simple, and the decoration style was abnormally tough without any unnecessary decorations. At present, half of the room's area was occupied by the workbench. The dead dragon occupied half of the workbench's area and was about 20 meters long. This dragon's blood and bones had been completely extracted after its death, yet it could emit such a huge dragon species bloodline pressure with just its flesh and skin. A dragon species phase aura was mostly emitted from its blood and bone marrow. Thus, the dead dragon Fey on the workbench should have been a main dragon when it was alive. It was obvious that Master Lan Qin had been doing research on main dragon Feys during this period. Apart from the main dragon Fey on the workbench, there were also some soft tissues that had been stripped from the Fey's body. These soft tissues were sealed in crystal bottles. He found that these crystal bottles used to seal the soft tissues were all made of diamond shielding crystals. The shielding crystals were a spiritual ingredient that could greatly shield pressure. Even after death, high-grade Feys would still emit a suppressive pressure, which was harmful to people with weaker constitutions. When Lin Yuan had faced Nightmare 6 on the island outside Indigo Azure City, he had circulated his spiritual power to resist the pressure emitted from Nightmare VI's body. Even under the protection of the Lava Dragon Lizard's lava shield, Lin Yuan still felt his qi and blood shaking as though he could spit out a mouthful of blood at any time. Master Lan Qin was not strong, so when researching high-grade Feys in order to prevent the pressure from high-grade Feys, she needed to use diamond shielding crystals. Under normal circumstances, the diamond shield crystal could even seal the pressure of a Myth 3 Fey, and there would not be the slightest leakage. Now he could clearly feel the faint, awe-inspiring pressure inside the bottle. It seemed like the shielding crystal bottles on Master Lan Qin's workbench contained something that belonged to a creation breed Fey. Lin Yuan had never come into contact with a creation breed Fey in reality so far. When Master Lan Qin saw Lin Yuan looking at the things on the workbench, she smiled and pointed at the sofa next to the observation platform. This main dragon species Fey, the red-eyed black dragon, has been dead for too long. It no longer has any research value. Take a seat first. Even if Fan uses the highest authority to obtain the source seed, the source seed is still in the guild. It will still take half an hour to obtain it. If the source seed had been exchanged, Fan Yi would have brought over the details of the exchange. Lin Yuan nodded and calmed down as he sat on the sofa. Lin Yuan was no longer concerned about whether the source seed was still in the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild. Even if it really wasn't there, Lin Yuan could use the transaction details from the Fey Observer Guild to find it. If he really couldn't find it or if the source seed that had grown into a vine was used, there was nothing he could do about it. Lin Yuan had just sat on the sofa when he heard Lan Qin speak again. "I'm a little curious. What Fey did Your Highness use in the All-Star match? I can only speculate that Your Highness Fey should be a healing-type Fey after watching Your Highness duel. But among the known healing-type Feys, there isn't anything that can match up to Your Highness's contracted healing-type Fey." Master Lan Qin's face couldn't help but flash with a strong probing expression. It wasn't that there weren't healing-type Feys that could absorb the target's vitality. In fact, a few healing-type Feys might even have a certain degree of control effects after becoming fantasy breeds. It was just that Lin Yuan's contracted healing-type Fey, which could make the opponent in a happy state and wait to be slaughtered, was simply too special. Lin Yuan didn't deliberately hide it. "Master Lan Qin, my contracted healing-type Fey is just a jasmine lily." Lin Yuan didn't say anything else. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Lan Qin's face immediately revealed a surprised expression, but there was also a hint of understanding in this surprised expression. Lan Qin had thought of many possibilities, but she hadn't thought much about the jasmine lily. It was because the jasmine lily's initial ability was too simple and monotonous. However, as a Class 5 Fey observer, Master Lan Qin was very familiar with the evolution possibilities of low-star Feys. The jasmine lily, which had originally seemed the most impossible, had become the truth. Although Master Lan Qin wasn't a powerful combat class spirit chi professional, she also understood that any spirit chi professional's contracted Fey couldn't be easily known by others. Lin Yuan's answer had already resolved Master Lan Qin's doubts. Therefore, Lan Qin wouldn't make a presumptuous request for Lin Yuan to summon the jasmine lily for observation. After Lin Yuan answered Master Lan Qin's question, he realized that Master Lan Qin had been looking at him. As a junior, Lin Yuan couldn't casually strike up a conversation with Master Lan Qin. Master Lan Qin had been looking at him, and it was obvious that she didn't have the intention to speak. Lin Yuan couldn't help but feel as though there were needles under his butt. After a long time, Lin Yuan heard Master Lan Qin speak. "Your Highness is that person who scored full marks for the Class 1 Scholar, Class 1 Fey Observer, and Class 1 Spiritual Ingredient Analyst exams, right? Old Man Ning's questions are much more difficult than those set by our Fey Observer Guild. In the past, only 2 or 3 out of 1,000 Creation Master Guilds have been able to pass the Lifestyle Class Occupation exams." Grandmaster Lan Qin didn't continue after saying this. Even though Lin Yuan wasn't Master Lan Qin's disciple, Master Lan Qin's eyes were filled with admiration for Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was a little surprised that Master Lan Qin recognized him. However, Lin Yuan was the only one in the entire Radiance Federation who had obtained full marks for all 3 Lifestyle Class Spirit Chi Professionals and qualified for the Creation Master exam. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 759. The Redbud City's Creation Master Guild might be the one who came up with the questions, but after the exam, they would have to submit the exam papers and results to the various lifestyle class guilds. His photo had always been included in the information he submitted for the examination. Therefore, it wasn't strange for Master Lan Qin, the president of the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild, to recognize it. However, he could not figure out the meaning behind Master Lan Qin's words. Just as Lin Yuan was guessing the meaning of Master Lan Qin's words, Master Lan Qin stretched out her hand and handed him a bronze Fey storage box. "From now on, even if I have nothing to do, I won't be selling the information on Class 1 to Class 3 Fey observers at the entrance of the guild. I'll let you take a look at this document. Although I'm not your teacher, I still hope to see you get a good result when you take the 2 or 3-star Spiritual Material Observer examination in the future." Upon hearing Master Lan Qin's words full of encouragement for the younger generation, Lin Yuan could not help but reveal a sunny smile. Lin Yuan solemnly extended both hands to receive the bronze Fey storage box from Master Lan Qin. "Grandmaster Lan Qin, this junior will go back and systematically study the knowledge of spiritual material observers from 1 to 3 stars. Originally, Lin Yuan didn't understand why Master Lan Qin, as the president of the Fey Observer Guild in the royal capital, would disguise herself as an elderly man and sell information on Class 1 to Class 3 Fey observers at such a cheap price of 5,000 Federation dollars. Back when he had opened a Fey store in the Xia region, he had gritted his teeth and saved for half a year to earn 5,000 Federation dollars. However, 5,000 Federation dollars was just a drop in the ocean for Master Lan Qin, who could strip the tissue from a creation breed Fey and place it on the observation platform. However, Master Lan Qin had spent countless days and nights sorting out the information in this bronze Fey storage box. This was Grandmaster Lan Qin's expectation for the young Rao. It was also an expectation that the inheritor of the discipline of Fey Observer would have for the junior Fey Observer. After Lin Yuan took the bronze Fey storage box, Master Lan Qin suddenly recalled that she had disguised herself as an old man and sold the information on Class 1 to Class 3 Fey observers that she had tirelessly organized to others. Feedback from other people. Master Lan Qin's eyes flashed with a trace of desolation, and she sighed and said to Lin Yuan, "Master Lan Qin, I'll be fine. Your Highness, the information that I've compiled about the Class 1 to Class 3 Fey observer has 3 levels more knowledge than the star web. It might be a little complicated and long-winded. I've even integrated some conclusions from Fey experiments into it. It seems like it might take up a lot of your time, Your Highness." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan looked at Master Lan Qin's somewhat lonely expression and suddenly felt a little distressed. Lin Yuan hurriedly replied, "Master Lan Qin, I feel that the most important thing in learning is to be rigorous. With Master Lan Qin's information that is far more detailed than the star web, it is a blessing for me and the other Fey observers." When Master Lan Qin heard this, the fine wrinkles on the corners of her eyes that had been carved by time suddenly stretched out, revealing a bright and kind smile. Just as Master Lan Qin was about to continue talking to Lin Yuan, someone knocked on the door. After knocking on the door 3 times, Fan directly walked in. He bowed to Grandmaster Lan Qin and Lin Yuan before saying, "President, I have already found out about the source seed. The source seed is a vine grown from a source-type life form, and it can't be used as a spiritual ingredient. It has been placed in the trash room. Yesterday, the phase and source-type lifeforms in the trash room were packaged and exchanged according to the Class 3 authority. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan immediately frowned. In the end, he was still a step too late. However, Lin Yuan immediately let out a breath of relief. The vine grown from the bright source seed that had been exchanged yesterday shouldn't have been used. When Master Lan Qin heard her assistant's words, she immediately turned to look at Lin Yuan. If it was packaged and exchanged according to the Class 3 authority, then this batch of items should still be left in the guild for the final review. They will only be sent out after 5 p.m. When Lan Qin looked at the time and realized that it was not long from 5 p.m., Lin Yuan hurriedly spoke to Lin Yuan again. Your Highness, I will accompany you to take out the source seed from this batch of packaged specimens. When Grandmaster Lan Qin's assistant heard Grandmaster Lan Qin address Lin Yuan as His Highness, a look of shock flashed across his face. Then, Fan Xian glanced at the Class 2 Creation Master crest on Lin Yuan's chest and immediately understood the true meaning of Lan Qin's words. This was truly the son of a noble, incomparably precious. Why would such an existence personally come to the royal capital's Fey Observer Guild? But then Fan thought of something and whispered to Lan Qin. President, a large number of Feys and source-type specimens in this trash room were ordered by the Li family's Li Yun bird niche. Originally, with Master Lan Qin's highest authority, Fan Yong had the right to take out the source seed from this batch of level 3 items. However, this batch of items was ordered by the Li family's Li Yun Niankeng, and they had already paid a meager amount of resources to the Fey Observer Guild. It could be said that this batch of packaged Feys and source-type lifeforms belonged to the Li family's Li Yun bird cage. Although it seemed like one thing to rashly touch the things that the Li family's Li Yun Yao had set down, it was not a big deal. However, it was very likely that it would be seen as a slap in the face of the Li family's Li Yun Yao Kansas. This was also the reason why Fan had hesitated and not chosen to use the highest authority. However, this matter involved the existence in front of him, and the source seed was what he wanted. There was no need to consider the Li family's Li Yun Yao Kan's face. Given this person's identity, even if he were to openly snatch something from the Li family's Li Yun Yao Kan could only chuckle and accept it. Master Lan Qin looked at Fan with a slight frown. When Fan came in, Lan Qin saw that Fan was not holding anything in his hand and knew that Fan must have some concerns. Fortunately, the source seed was still in the guild. If the Li family's Li Yun Yao Kan had taken it and used it while Fan was reporting to the guild, she would not be able to explain to Lin Yuan. If that happened, she would not be able to explain to Lin Yuan. From Lin Yuan's performance, Lan Qin could see that the source-type lifeform specimen was very important to Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan heard the conversation between Fan and Master Lan Qin, his brows were completely relaxed. Lin Yuan knew that the source seed was still in the royal capital's Fey Observer Guild. As it was related to Red Thorn's metamorphosis, Lin Yuan had to obtain the last source seed no matter what. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 760. Just as Lin Yuan and Master Lan Qin headed downstairs to the Fey Observer Guild storeroom, a voice suddenly rang out. Lin Yuan listened to Master Lan Qin casually explain to him the mechanism of exchanging Feys and source-type lifeforms for specimens in the Fey Observer Guild. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the Fey Observer Guild's authority was very complicated. Even the top powers only had level 3 authority. As the president, Grandmaster Lan Qin had the highest level 5 authority. Master Lan Qin wanted to give Lin Yuan Class 4 access. Lin Yuan didn't refuse, but he wasn't enthusiastic about it either. This was because he had never subconsciously thought of exchanging Feys and source-type lifeforms for specimens in the Fey Observer Guild. The Feys and source-type lifeforms that the Fey Observer Guild used as specimens were all dead. These dead Feys and source-type lifeforms might have diversity after being nurtured, but they didn't have any particularly important practical value. When the valuable spiritual ingredients were sent to the Fey Observer Association, they had been stripped and sent to the Spiritual Ingredient Analyst Association. These Feys and source-type lifeforms that were used as specimens were exchanged by other factions, and most of them were used for Fey Observer research. He hoped to be able to observe these Feys that were filled with diversity to better understand the nature of Feys. However, Lin Yuan didn't need to study the Fey's essence at all. With Morbius ability, true data, everything's essence would have nowhere to hide. Moreover, with the increase of Morbius grade and quality, true data would only become stronger and stronger. Lin Yuan relied on his body to enhance Feys, and it was completely different from how ordinary creation masters enhanced Feys. Thus, he did not put much effort into the spirit fluids combination. However, after Genius became a fantasy breed and the Internet of All Things beast, the increase in its spiritual power allowed Genius to learn any knowledge without considering the limits of its spiritual power. The accumulated knowledge of intelligence was in the process of changing from quantity to quality. Coupled with precise memory and knowledge analysis, Genius had used a large amount of systematic knowledge to create a few spirit fluid formulas during its time as a creation master. Most of the formulas were still in practice, but there was one that Genius had successfully tested when he was researching the army grain radish. Genius had used the rattan that was filled with spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone and used it as a spiritual ingredient. Under the roasting of the life-form sacrificial fire, it had accidentally fused the soldier radish's powerful regeneration ability into the spirit liquid. After Genius concocted this spiritual fluid, it was named the lush spiritual fluid. The lush spirit fluid could promote the rapid growth of plant species phase. Genius had used the lush spirit liquid to irrigate the army grain radish stalk, but the golden lotus brocade seedling, which he had used the golden lotus brocade beads exclusive skill, had outstanding effects. After these golden lotus brocade seedlings were watered with Genius exclusive lush spiritual liquid, the golden lotus brocade seedlings that were supposed to grow for a week grew to the point where they could break free from the mother plant's control in just a few hours. With Genius's accumulation of knowledge, it was the same as having multiple top-notch scholars, Fey observers, and spiritual ingredient analysts behind his back. Furthermore, the brains of these top-notch scholars, Fey observers, and spiritual ingredient analysts were perfectly fused and were constantly operating with precision. Smart use of knowledge and creativity had imperceptibly given Lin Yuan wealth that was far more valuable than the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls that were constantly produced in the spirit lock spatial zone. When Lin Yuan saw a huge metal door at the end of the corridor, he heard Master Lan Qin beside him say, "Master Lan Qin, this is the first time you've seen such a huge metal door. Your Highness, the storeroom is just ahead." When Lin Yuan entered the huge metal door, he saw a large pile of gold Fey storage boxes inside. These gold Fey storage boxes were piled high together. Each gold Fey storage box had a list that had a serial number and a page of detailed information about the phase and source type lifeforms. He saw that there were 4 to 5 staff members wearing Fey observer robes beside the pile of gold Fey storage boxes, and they were still moving gold Fey storage boxes out from inside. In front of these gold Fey storage boxes, there was an elder talking with 2 youths in a loud voice. Lin Yuan saw that there were 5 golden patterns on the back of the elder's Fey observer robe, and he knew that this elder was also a Class 5 Fey observer. The Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild had a president and 5 vice presidents. Even if this elder wasn't one of the 5 vice presidents as a Class 5 Fey observer, he must have an important position in the Fey Observer Guild. When Lin Yuan saw the appearance of the 2 youths beside the elder, he couldn't help but be slightly startled. One of the 2 youths had thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a sturdy body. He had short hair that couldn't be grasped with his hands. This man was wearing a pure white half-body leather armor. The leather armor was emitting cold air. From the style of the leather armor, it should be made of snow alligator skin. Beside the man in pure white half-body leather armor was a youth wearing a simple green robe. He had dragon eyes, but his lips were thin. He was a young man who seemed to be a little distant and cold. Lin Yuan knew this person. He was the Radiance 100 Sequence number 3 Long Tao. Lin Yuan and Long Tao were old acquaintances. Since Lin Yuan and Long Tao had experienced the Class 3 Abyss Dimensional Rift together, they could be considered friends. However, Long Tao's friend identity was Black's Combat Class Spirit Chi professional identity. It wasn't Lin Yuan's original identity as a creation master. At that moment, Long Tao was standing beside the man in pure white half-body leather armor and fiddling with his mobile phone while the man in pure white half-body leather armor was constantly chatting with the elder. At that moment, the man in pure white half-body leather armor saw Lin Yuan and Lan Qin, who were walking toward them. The man in pure white half-body leather armor didn't know Lin Yuan, but he obviously knew the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild's president, Lan Qin. The man took a few steps forward and greeted Lan Qin. "Greetings, Master Lan Qin. I originally wanted to visit Master Lan Qin after the transaction of this batch of specimens. My father has brought over 3 types of mandarin ducks that our Li Yun avian nest has newly bred. I hope that Master Lan Qin can give us some pointers." Lan Qin's eyes lit up. The Pinnacle faction, Li Yun avian nest, was a faction that specialized in breeding avian fays. Most of the flying fays that could be used for transportation in the Radiance Federation, from the gray speed pigeon to the divine travel black swallow to the rainbow cloud goose, were produced by the Li family's Li Yun avian nest. The Li family would breed and release a few new flying fays every once in a while. These flying fays were mostly very eye-catching as transportation tools. Once they were released, they would immediately become popular in the Radiance Federation. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 761. Lan Qin was very interested in the new fays that the Li family had nurtured. Moreover, the Li family had nurtured a mandarin duck fay, which was very rare among avian fays. The Li family's Li Yun Yaocan was going to release 3 types of mandarin duck flying fays at once. It seemed like the Li family wanted to change the Radiance Federation's current flying fay model and release a couple type of flying fay. However, Lan Qin still had business to attend to. Compared to Lin Yuan, who she had just met, Lan Qin was undoubtedly closer to Li Xian in terms of personal relationship. Lan Qin and the Li family's Li Yun Yaocan had been working together for decades. Lan Qin had even watched Li Xian grow up. In Lan Qin's opinion, Li Xian had a good character and was a good child. However, apart from his character, Li Xian's temper was not very good. Li Xian was very prideful and had always placed great importance on the Li family's reputation. He was straightforward and inflexible, and it was easy to offend people. If Lin Yuan asked Li Xian for the goods that the Li family had already packed, but Li Xian did not immediately buy it after discovering Lin Yuan's identity, it would be a big problem. Lan Qin did not know Lin Yuan well, but she knew the Moon Empress very well. If Lin Yuan and the Moon Empress had the same character and temper, Li Xian would be punished even if he said something wrong. Therefore, Lan Qin took the initiative to speak to Li Xian. Xian, there is a source-type source seed among this batch of source-type life forms that the Lord beside me needs. You have to take out the source seed now. Upon hearing that, Li Xian could not help but frown. However, Li Xian did not immediately refuse as he had heard Lan Qin address him as Lord. Therefore Li Xian carefully sized up Lin Yuan. As a result, Li Xian's eyes widened. Li Xian was surprised not because he saw the Creation Master President on Lin Yuan's chest, but because he realized that Long Tao, who had been standing beside him, had walked to Lin Yuan's side at some point. He even extended his hand to Lin Yuan. Li Xian and Long Tao were children who had played together since they were young and could understand each other very well. It was also because of this that Li Xian could clearly understand Long Tao's arrogance. It was true that Long Tao was the Radiance 100 sequence number 3, but he was also the Ascending Dragon City's young master and the only direct descendant of the Coiling Dragon Valley's younger generation. Ever since he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he had always looked down at others. He didn't care about other people's identities when he made friends. He only made friends that he liked. For Long Tao to take the initiative to extend his hand to the young man beside Grandmaster Lan Qin, it meant that Long Tao didn't just know this young man. He even treated this youth as a friend from the bottom of his heart. However, Li Xian did not know that Long Tao, who had reached out his hand, was also a little confused about his own reaction. As someone who had walked with Lin Yuan on the Radiant Moon Mountain, Long Tao knew that his trip had been in vain when he saw Envoy's Dark Moon and Envoy's Cold Moon's attitude toward Lin Yuan. Long Tao knew that Lin Yuan had been accepted as a disciple by the Moon Empress. If Lin Yuan had not helped him recover his spirit chi after the battle, he might have fallen and made a fool of himself after winning in the Radiant Moon Palace. Long Tao accepted Lin Yuan's favor in his heart. But even so, Long Tao would at most greet Lin Yuan and not walk forward enthusiastically to extend his hand. When he saw Lin Yuan, Long Tao felt a familiar youth's temperament and a familiar gaze. Long Tao only felt that the person standing in front of him was a youth wearing a silver mask. When Lin Yuan saw Long Tao walking over and extending his hand to him, he subconsciously shook his hand as well. Be it the strength or the touch, it made Long Tao feel that Lin Yuan was black. This was a kind of subconscious intuition that made Long Tao a little unclear. Long Tao let go of his hand and looked into Lin Yuan's eyes. It's been a long time since we parted at the Leaning Moon Mountain. Long Tao paused for a moment before continuing. It can't be a long time. I saw you at the All-Star game previously. I was going to look for you for a meal after the All-Star game, but I didn't expect you to leave first. You helped me recover my spiritual power at the Leaning Moon Mountain, so I wanted to treat you to a meal. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan smiled brightly. If it's a meal, there will always be a chance in the future. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's voice, Long Tao suddenly looked at Lin Yuan with an even more puzzled gaze. A person wearing a mask could hide their appearance and age, but there was no way to hide their voice. At that moment, Lin Yuan's voice was too similar to Black's voice, or perhaps it was completely the same. It's almost 5 o'clock now and it's almost time to eat. Why don't we go and catch up later? Lin Yuan didn't refuse and nodded. Okay, but I usually don't eat outside in the royal capital, so you can decide where to eat. I'll treat you. Upon hearing that, Long Tao's brows, which were slightly furrowed due to puzzlement, immediately relaxed and he said with delight, okay. Why don't we go to the Muxiang residence in a while? You know the owner of the Muxiang residence. It's Shirsu's buffet restaurant. Long Tao enjoyed Lin Yuan's addressing him as elder brother, regardless of whether Lin Yuan was black or not. Just Lin Yuan's attitude was enough to let Long Tao know that Lin Yuan was sincere in making friends with him. As for treating to a meal, it was just a kind of attitude between Long Tao and Lin Yuan. No matter how good the two of them ate, the cost of a meal was just a drop in the ocean. While speaking, Long Tao carefully observed the changes in Lin Yuan's eyes. Upon seeing the puzzled look in Lin Yuan's eyes, Long Tao couldn't help but be a little speechless. When Long Tao was deciding on the dining venue, he had deliberately mentioned Shirsu to see if Lin Yuan would be unfamiliar with this name. Now that he clearly saw the puzzled look in Lin Yuan's eyes, Long Tao thought that he was thinking too much. However, Long Tao didn't know that Lin Yuan wasn't puzzled about Shirsu. Instead, he was wondering if Long Tao's Muxiang residence was the Muxiang residence that Zhang Bai had purchased large quantities of gun eggs, cannon, and kebabs from the manor. Lin Yuan couldn't be blamed for being puzzled. Recently, the Muxiang residence had been a restaurant's name that Lin Yuan had heard too many times. When Li Xian heard Long Tao and Lin Yuan mentioning the Leaning Moon Mountain, he recalled that Lan Qin had addressed Lin Yuan as Lord. Even if Li Xian hadn't seen the Creation Master crest on Lin Yuan's chest, he immediately confirmed Lin Yuan's identity. The top factions were all spreading the news that the Moon Empress had accepted a disciple, but the identity of this disciple had always been a mystery. Now, it seemed like the Moon Empress disciple was this person in front of him. Chapter 762. After confirming Lin Yuan's identity, Li Xian knew that he had to ask someone to take out the source seed that the Li family's Li Yun Yaocan had packed. Li Xian couldn't help but feel a little upset. Li Xian couldn't refuse to take out one of the items from the packed specimen. He couldn't reject it either. Li Xian was a smart person and knew what he would have to face if he rejected it. Even if Lin Yuan didn't express his stance after he rejected it, Lan Qin wouldn't allow him to take away this batch of specimens from the royal capital's Fey Observer Guild. However, it was also because he couldn't reject it that Li Xian felt that Lin Yuan was snatching something from the Li family's Li Yun Yao Kansas. At that moment, Lin Yuan and Long Tao had finished catching up. After catching up, Lin Yuan quickly walked over to Li Xian. At the same time, he was thinking about what he should use to exchange for the source seed from Li Xian. Lin Yuan wasn't someone who would bully others with his power. After becoming the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan had been relying on his own efforts to increase his strength and develop his faction, Sky City. However, while increasing his strength and developing his faction, Lin Yuan had been hiding his identity as the Moon Empress disciple. If it wasn't to obtain the source seed that was crucial for Red Thorn's evolution, Lin Yuan wouldn't have thought of using his identity as the Moon Empress disciple. When Lin Yuan had just become a spirit chi professional and logged into Star Web, he had been 178 meters tall. Later on he had grown to 179 meters. During the new year, Lin Yuan had logged into Star Web to fight in the Celestial Stairway duels and also updated his identity card. After updating his identity card, Lin Yuan realized that he had unknowingly grown to 180 meters tall. Li Xian was 188 meters tall and was much taller than Lin Yuan. However, when Li Xian saw Lin Yuan walking toward him, he didn't know why he felt a pressure in his heart. At that moment, Li Xian saw the youth stop in front of him and shake his hand. In an instant, a pot of strange plants appeared in the youth's hand. The strange plant in the pot had many small golden beans growing on it. The small golden beans were golden and had several pink embroideries on them. They looked soft, moist and cute. When Lin Yuan took out this strange golden plant, the pupils of the Class 3 Creation Master Long Tao and the Class 5 Fey Observer, Grandmaster Lan Qin, shrank. Li Xian wasn't a Creation Master or a Fey Observer, so he didn't know what this strange plant with golden beans was. However, at this moment, Li Xian heard the gentle and refreshing voice of the young man before him. I'm really sorry that I need to pick one of the things you packed. However, the source seed is very important to me. This is a golden lotus brocade plant that evolved from a flower brocade pearl. The effect of each leaf of the golden lotus brocade plant is 1.3 times that of a flower brocade pearl leaf. At the same time, the golden lotus brocade beads can increase a creation master's success rate in concocting the spirit fluid and increase the fusion rate of the spiritual ingredients in the spirit fluid. It is also very gentle and can be used with other spiritual ingredients that can assist creation masters, including the flower brocade pearl. I hope to use this pot of golden lotus brocade to exchange for the source seed in your package. Is that possible? Li Xian said subconsciously when he heard that. No problem. I will go and find out which face storage box the source seed is in. Li Xian had always abhorred evil and was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. If Lin Yuan had really used his power to forcefully rob him, even if Li Xian had endured it and not acted up, he would probably remember it for life. However, Lin Yuan could obviously use his power to oppress him, but he had actually explained the reason and apologized. His final sentence, "Is that possible?" had turned the act of forcefully robbing into asking the Li family's Li Yun avian can for help. Not only did this protect the Li family's Li Yun avian can's reputation, but it was also the same as giving Li Yun and the Li family's Li Yun avian can face by taking the initiative to ask for help as the Moon Empress disciple. Li Xian was naturally willing to help the Moon Empress disciple. Li Xian didn't know what this golden lotus brocade plant was. Putting aside the fact that the golden lotus brocade plant was 1.3 times better than the flower brocade pearl and could increase the fusion rate of spiritual ingredients. Just the fact that the golden lotus brocade plant could be used with other spiritual ingredients that could assist creation masters was enough for Li Xian to exchange for this pot of golden lotus brocade plant at all costs. As a pinnacle faction, the Li family's Li Yun avian can needed to use a lot of creation master resources in the process of nurturing flying phase. In particular, the Li family's Li Yun avian can had to pour in high-class creation masters resources to nurture precious flying phase. High-class creation masters had always been the most precious resources in a faction, and every high-class creation master's resources would be arranged to be spent on critical matters. The fact that the golden lotus brocade plant could be used with spiritual ingredients that had auxiliary functions for other creation masters was equivalent to reducing the difficulty for high-class creation masters to concoct spirit fluids. It imperceptibly increased the speed at which high-class creation masters concocted spirit fluids. In comparison, the golden lotus brocade plant was equivalent to adding high-class creation master resources for the Li family's Li Yun avian. Kansas Lin Yuan was treating a high-class creation master as a few resources. He looked at Li Xian, who was helping him look at the details on the gold face storage box and search for the source seed, and revealed a trace of a smile on his face. As someone who had lived 2 lives, Lin Yuan was naturally not a young kid who would easily become enemies with others in terms of the ways of the world. After running the private faction Sky City for so long, Lin Yuan was naturally very clear about the importance of connections to a faction. Therefore, Lin Yuan paid great attention to the accumulation of connections. Instead of directly snatching the source seed from Li Xian's hands with his identity, it was better to use another method to befriend Li Xian. It was to increase Sky City's network of connections. Even so, Lin Yuan had not planned to take out the golden lotus brocade plant to exchange for the source seed from Li Xian. It was just that when he had given Master Hong Shen the golden lotus brocade plant to use to concoct the spirit fluid, Master Hong Shen had accidentally discovered that the golden lotus brocade plant could be used with other spiritual ingredients that could assist creation masters. Such an accidental discovery had infinitely raised the golden lotus brocade plant's value and made Lin Yuan need to be more cautious in the future transactions of the golden lotus brocade plant. It could be said that the golden lotus brocade plant was now a kind of foundation-class resource that was greatly helpful to the faction's creation masters. If a large number of golden lotus brocade plant flowed into the factions, it would even affect the situation and direction between the major factions. Even if Lin Yuan traded out resources like the golden lotus brocade plant, he would not let it flow into the factions that were hostile to him. In fact, things like the golden lotus brocade plant that could affect a faction's creation master's resources were used appropriately, and it was also a perfect blow to the hostile faction. The first time was even more. It's a new month. Sob sob sob, please support the button. Vote for monthly votes. Button will refuel and update. Button will stay up all night writing. 1:51 a.m. End of this chapter. Chapter 763. Just like the Miao family's Beast Creation Institution, which mainly focused on creation master resources, the golden lotus brocade beads would have a huge impact on it. By trading the golden lotus brocade pearls with the Miao family's beast creation institution, it was equivalent to increasing the creation master resources of the Miao family's beast creation institution exponentially. On the contrary, Lin Yuan refused to trade the golden lotus brocade pearls with the Miao family. Instead, he traded them with other hostile factions with the same functions as the Miao family. This was equivalent to increasing the strength of the Miao family's enemies. It had imperceptibly weakened the creation master resources that the Miao family was proud of. When something like the golden lotus brocade bead that could strengthen a faction's creation master's foundation appeared out of nowhere, those who had not personally used the golden lotus brocade bead would definitely doubt its authenticity. Therefore, there must be witnesses with sufficient status to witness the effects of the golden lotus brocade. The Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild's president, Lan Qin, the Coiling Dragon Valley's Long Tao, and the Li Cloudbird Niche's Li Xian were undoubtedly powerful witnesses for the golden lotus pearl. They could help Lin Yuan advertise the golden lotus pearl. In fact, Lin Yuan did not intend to take out the golden lotus brocade bead now. After all, he had only cultivated 10 pots of child ramets with the golden lotus brocade pearl brocade or Tet's exclusive skill. However, after seeing Long Tao and Li Xian, Lin Yuan wanted to try and see if he could use the golden lotus brocade beads to attract them. He asked Long Tao and Li Xian to take the initiative to trade the golden lotus brocade beads with him. Then he could use the golden lotus brocade beads to exchange for some law origin crystals. Otherwise, the law source crystals in his hands were far from enough to elevate a Myth 3 Dark Death Law rune to the level of the creation Dark Death world. In essence, he was not afraid of the golden lotus brocade beads flowing into other factions. Although the golden lotus brocade beads in Lin Yuan's hand was alive, it could not be considered a proper fey. It was just a part of the plant that was separated by the golden lotus brocade beads' Mother Ramet's exclusive skill. If he had to define the golden lotus brocade beads that were nurtured through the broodmother's exclusive skill, he felt that it was a spiritual ingredient that could grow continuously. Therefore, it did not matter if anyone studied the golden lotus brocade pearls child ramets that had flowed out of Lin Yuan's hands. As long as the mother ramets were in Lin Yuan's hands, he could firmly control the market for the golden lotus brocade pearls. To achieve an absolute monopoly on the golden lotus brocade market. Lin Yuan did not know how many Feys and Source-type lifeforms Li Xian had packed from the Royal Capital's Fey Observer Guild as specimens. Li Xian's actions were very fast. In just a few minutes he had checked the details on 8 gold Fey storage boxes. However, he still couldn't find the source seed that Lin Yuan needed. During this process Lin Yuan had not been idle. As early as when Li Xian had started to check the Fey storage box, Lin Yuan had used his peripheral vision to observe Long Tao and Master Lan Qin's expressions. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw Long Tao walking toward him and staring at the golden lotus brocade bead in his hand. Lin Yuan simply turned around and handed the golden lotus brocade bead to Long Tao. If you want to see it, why don't you hold it in your hand and examine it carefully? Or you can just pluck off a leaf of the golden lotus brocade pearl to mix with the spirit liquid and test its effects. When Li Xian saw that Lin Yuan had handed the golden lotus brocade beads to Long Tao, he hurriedly instructed the 5 staff members who were moving the new gold Fey storage box out. The 5 of you don't be in a hurry to move the items out. Help me find the source seed in these spirit storage boxes first. After saying that, Li Xian quickly walked to Lin Yuan's side and looked at Long Tao with a vigilant gaze as though he was afraid that Long Tao would snatch this pot of golden lotus brocade pearls from him. Li Xian might not be a creation master or a Fey observer, so he couldn't identify the effects of the golden lotus brocade beads. However, he did not doubt the effects of the golden lotus brocade beads. After all, this pot of golden lotus brocade pearls was taken out by the Moon Empress disciple. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's suggestion, Lan Qin said, "That's right. I'll find an empty observation room for you. It'll be more convenient for you to concoct the golden lotus brocade beads." Long Tao shook his head and said, "No need to trouble Grandmaster Lan Qin." After speaking, Long Tao took 2 filtered gold Fey storage boxes and stacked them together to form a simple workbench. Then Long Tao took out 4 spiritual materials. They were silver tear dragon beast blood, silver tear dragon beast bone powder, quenched heart scale, and a small piece of gold scorching calamus leaf. He was preparing to concoct the spirit fluid on the spot. Everyone knew that dragon species Feys, be it dinosaur species Feys or flood dragons, could spit out dragon breath. Upon seeing the spiritual materials Long Tao took out, Lin Yuan immediately knew that Long Tao was preparing to concoct a Class 2 elixir that could stimulate the dinosaur species Fey's dragon breath talent, the infant dragon elixir. Creation masters had always required a very quiet environment when concocting spirit fluids. Long Tao must be very confident in concocting the Class 2 spirit fluid under everyone's watch. This also showed that Long Tao was very confident in his strength as a creation master. After Long Tao divided and mixed the 4 spiritual materials, he took out a drop of purplish gold sticky blood and dripped it into the half-concocted spirit fluid. After Long Tao took out this drop of purplish gold sticky blood, the Fey Observer Guild storeroom was filled with a thick stench of blood. This thick stench of blood also had a unique stench that belonged to dinosaur species Feys. When Lin Yuan had been understanding the Radiance Federation's top factions, he had paid special attention to the Long family's Coiled Dragon Valley because he knew Long Tao. He had also learned that the Long family's Coiled Dragon Valley had a unique Fey called the Pseudo-Skeletal Dragon. In fact, the Long family's Coiled Dragon Valley's creation master resources were almost on par with the Miao family's Beast Creation Institution. The Pseudo-Skeletal Dragon was able to suppress the Miao family in terms of creation master resources because of the Pseudo-Skeletal Dragon. The Pseudo-Skeletal Dragon was a dragon that loved to eat and had abnormally terrifying looks. Its entire body was covered with a layer of exoskeleton, which was almost entirely made of flexible cartilage. Even if one killed the Pseudo-Skeletal Dragon and used razor to clean it, they would never be able to dig out 25 caddies of meat from its body. However, having a lot of bones wasn't a disadvantage for the Pseudo-Skeletal Dragon. Instead, it was a great advantage. The purplish gold bone marrow in the Pseudo-Skeletal Dragon's bones could increase the success rate of concocting spirit fluids and greatly reduce the time required for concocting spirit fluids. After a long time, Long Tao plucked a leaf that was shaped like a golden pearl from the golden lotus brocade pearl while Li Xian's eyelids were twitching wildly. Just as Long Tao was about to carefully squeeze the golden lotus brocade pearl's juice into the spirit fluid, he realized that before he could exert any force, the leaf had been separated from the plant and turned into water. The water leaf turned into a small lump of sticky gelatinous substance that fell into the spirit fluid. Long Tao used his spiritual energy to stir quickly, and soon the infant dragon elixir was concocted. Long Tao looked at the infant dragon elixir that was concocted in front of him. Although he was forcefully suppressing the fluctuations in his eyes were still flickering continuously. The second one, end of this chapter. Chapter 764. Long Tao had concocted the infant dragon potion countless times in the past, and the best spiritual ingredient fusion rate he had ever concocted was only 62%. Even if Long Tao's basic skills were solid, he would still be slightly affected by the concoction of the infant dragon potion in front of everyone's eyes. Long Tao felt that it would be great if he could achieve a 55% fusion rate with the spiritual ingredients of the infant dragon potion. But this time, the fusion rate exceeded Long Tao's expectations. It reached 72%. Long Tao naturally wouldn't be conceited enough to think that his creation master strength had increased. Furthermore, the pseudo-skeletal royal dragon's bone marrow could only speed up the concoction speed and not increase the fusion rate of the spiritual ingredients. In other words, it was all thanks to the golden lotus pearls that the infant dragon potion's assimilation rate had reached 72%, which was 10% higher than his previous attempt. When Long Tao was mixing the spiritual fluid, he also timed it. This time, it took a total of 21 minutes to mix the spiritual fluid. Compared to the 24 minutes required to concoct the baby dragon potion with the bone marrow of the pseudo-humorous dragon, it was 3 minutes longer. After Long Tao put the golden lotus brocade bead into practice, the value of the golden lotus brocade bead rose infinitely in Long Tao's heart. In Long Tao's opinion, the golden lotus brocade bead was a creation master's cardinal treasure. Long Tao looked at the golden lotus brocade bead for a long while before moving his eyes away. She handed the golden lotus brocade beads to Lin Yuan and said, "You're welcome. There's no way to accurately verify the success rate of the spirit elixir just by mixing it once. In terms of time, using it together with the bone marrow of the pseudo-skeletal royal dragon can increase the time required by 3 minutes or more. Based on the overall concoction time of the spirit liquid, I can infer that the golden lotus brocade is at least 13% faster than the spirit liquid. The fusion rate with the spirit materials has also increased by at least 10%. The more Long Tao said, the more he sighed at the golden lotus brocade beads. However, Long Tao had his own bottom line and integrity. Since Long Tao and Li Xian were friends, he wouldn't snatch the golden lotus brocade beads that Li Xian had agreed to trade with. Hearing Long Tao's experiment results, Master Lan Qin's eyes were full of amazement. Li Xian's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Especially when he heard Long Tao say that the fusion rate of spiritual materials would increase by at least 10%, Li Xian couldn't help but clap his hands, the corners of his mouth almost reaching his ears. Li Xian was a sentimental person. After sensing Lin Yuan's attitude, the displeasure in his heart had completely dissipated. He even had a good impression of Lin Yuan. Not using one's power to oppress others when one was at a high position was an extremely rare and precious quality among the disciples of top powers. Moreover, Lin Yuan's identity was like the moon in the clouds, far from what the top faction disciples could compare to. Now that Li Xian knew the effects of the golden lotus brocade beads, he started to thank Lin Yuan instead. Li Xian knew very well that the golden lotus brocade beads wouldn't be very effective in the hands of a Class 3 creation master like Long Tao. However, if it was placed in the hands of a pinnacle Class 4 creation master like Li Yun Avian Niche, the efficiency would increase by at least 10% when enhancing bronze/epic phase or using high-purity spirit chi to induce phase to mutate. This was simply a huge gift from the heavens. The more Li Xian looked at Lin Yuan, the more he found him pleasing to the eye. "Bring me along when you two go to dinner tonight." Long Tao had originally planned to bring Li Xian along for dinner. After all, he had come to the royal capital's Fey Observer Guild to accompany Li Xian. However, now that Li Xian had taken the initiative to join the dinner, he didn't want to introduce himself but to take the initiative to get to know Lin Yuan. Long Tao didn't say anything and looked at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan naturally wouldn't object to this. After seeing Li Xian, Lin Yuan already wanted to befriend him. "No problem, I don't have any objections. It's just that I don't know what delicious places there are in the capital. If we go, we'll have to follow Brother Long Tao." After saying that, Lin Yuan extended his hand toward Li Xian and took the initiative to introduce himself. "Hello, I'm Lin Yuan." Li Xian felt that Lin Yuan's personality was simply too good. Li Xian hurriedly smiled and used both hands to hold Lin Yuan's hand while introducing himself. "I'm Li Xian Che Ganxian. Haha, since I came uninvited, then let me treat you to dinner tonight." At that moment, the Class 5 Fey Observer Elder, who had accompanied Long Tao and Li Xian, walked over while holding an abnormally ordinary long vine and said, "Don't worry, this should be the source seed." While speaking, the old man revealed a strange expression and secretly glanced at the golden lotus brocade bead in Lin Yuan's hand. The elder simply could not understand why Lin Yuan would be willing to use a treasure like the golden lotus brocade pearl to exchange for a source seed that even took up space in the Fey storage box. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up when he saw the vine that was formed from the source seed in the elder's hand. Lin Yuan quickly stored the vines that the source seed had developed into the amber button-shaped diamond Fey storage box. Even though Red Thorn was still in a deep slumber within the spirit lock spatial zone, when it sensed the final source seed, it was still able to sense the source seed. Red Thorn, who was in deep sleep, transmitted an abnormal signal of desire. This feeling of desire was exactly the same as when Red Thorn had devoured the second source seed that had yet to germinate. When he sensed the signal from Red Thorn, he knew that he was in the spirit lock spatial zone. It seemed like the three source seeds that he had previously discovered in the dimensional rift were not three separate source-type lifeforms but one entity. With the vine that was formed from the source seed in his hand, Lin Yuan's heart was finally at ease. Afterward, Lin Yuan just had to feed the vine to Red Thorn and wait for it to complete its transformation. After obtaining the source seed, Lin Yuan handed the golden lotus brocade pearl to Li Xian. At that moment, Lin Yuan had completed his task at the Fey Observer Guild. Lin Yuan looked at Master Lan Qin, who was staring at the golden lotus brocade pearl and hesitating to speak. Lin Yuan's eyes flickered as he asked, "Master Lan Qin, do you want to observe the golden lotus brocade pearl?" Master Lan Qin nodded and replied, "I do have such a plan. I do have such a plan. I was thinking of getting 2 leaves of the golden lotus pearl from Shaoxian. However, the leaves will quickly melt after leaving the golden lotus brocade pearl, and they can't be preserved." Master Lan Qin only took a few glances at the golden lotus brocade pearl and noticed its weakness. Lin Yuan was willing to let the golden lotus brocade pearl flow into the hands of other factions because he had to ensure that the golden lotus brocade pearl would not change hands with other factions. However, the golden lotus brocade pearl was a resource that was equivalent to a creation master's resources, so no faction would be willing to trade it away. However, as more and more golden lotus brocade pearls flowed out of Lin Yuan's hands, it was very likely that some factions would want to make an issue out of the golden lotus brocade pearl's leaves. The characteristics of the golden lotus brocade pearl's leaves turning into water could effectively prevent this. Moreover, the sticky juice that turned into water would lose its activity within 2 minutes. Therefore, the method of exchanging the juice would be fundamentally rejected. This was also the reason why Lin Yuan was not afraid of going against his original intention of letting the golden lotus brocade pearl flow out of his hands. However, Lin Yuan, who had always liked 1,000 layers of tricks, naturally would not only have 2 layers of tricks for the golden lotus brocade pearl. Lin Yuan still had a 3rd layer of tricks waiting for him, but it required a prerequisite. The 3rd layer. Do you want to see the game between factions in detail or quickly go to the Divine Wood Federation to train? It was up to the readers to decide whether the Celestial Council should focus on writing. Button did not have a draft and was written on the spot. He wanted to hear everyone's opinions and adjust the outline. End of this chapter. Chapter 765. Under Master Lan Qin's somewhat regretful gaze, Lin Yuan's hand sank. Another pot of golden lotus pearls appeared in Lin Yuan's hand. This scene stunned everyone present. Then Long Tao's and Li Xian's minds suddenly became active. Lin Yuan said as he handed the golden lotus pearl to Lan Qin. Grandmaster Lan Qin, I still have some golden lotus pearls. If you want to study them, you can study the one in my hand. Grandmaster Lan Qin quickly waved her hand and said, Your Highness, you can't do that. Lan Qin had just roughly observed the golden lotus brocade beads. As a plant, the structure of the golden lotus pearl was not complicated, but it looked quite strange from the outside. After observing for a while, Lan Qin did not dare to make an accurate conclusion about the species of the golden lotus brocade. He only felt that the golden lotus brocade bead should be a kind of bead-like fleshy fey. In fact, Master Lan Qin was not to be blamed. Lin Yuan had also been shocked when he had seen the child ramets from the golden lotus brocade pearl. The child ramets of the golden lotus brocade beads belong to the typical situation of the child born by the mother doesn't look like the mother. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this was a good thing. The golden lotus brocade beads' mother ramets were very easy to associate with the flower brocade beads, but the appearance of the golden lotus brocade beads' child ramets was very different from the flower brocade beads. On the contrary, it looked somewhat similar to the flower brocade pearl before it mutated. As a healing-type fey that was despised by people, it was hard for people to associate it with the precious golden lotus brocade beads. If he summoned Genius and Chimey and told others that Genius was a 100 questions beast and Chimey was a sound bird, they would not be able to do so. He was afraid that others would immediately think of him as a lunatic. Lin Yuan said when he saw that Lan Xin did not accept the golden lotus brocade beads. Just now, Grandmaster Lan Qin gave me a set of information. This golden lotus brocade bead is my gift to Grandmaster Lan Qin. Master Lan Qin originally had a calm and dignified personality. Now that she was middle-aged and engaged in fey observation work, she had become even more steady. However, after hearing Lin Yuan's words, he could not help but roll his eyes. His own information was something that people would despise even if it cost 5,000 federal coins. However, upon seeing Lin Yuan's sincere eyes, Master Lan Qin smiled and reached out to take the golden lotus brocade bead from Lin Yuan's hand. Then leave this golden lotus brocade with me to study for a month. After a month you can take the golden lotus brocade back. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan did not refuse as he knew that if he did, Master Lan Qin would not even accept this month's time. Alright, but I won't return the knowledge and the information that Master Lan Qin gave me. Grandmaster Lan Qin was slightly startled. Then she looked at Lin Yuan with a slightly different gaze. Her eyes were increasingly gentle and kind. I'll keep my word. Your Highness, please don't return any of it to me. Lan Qin sent Lin Yuan, Long Tao, and Li Xian to the Fey Observer Guild's hall. When she saw Lin Yuan's departing figure, Lan Qin could not help but sigh. What an adorable child. After exiting the Fey Observer Association, Li Xian coolly snapped his fingers, and a Fey carriage appeared in front of him. The moment the Fey carriage was summoned, the people coming and going at the entrance of the Fey Observer Association couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. For a moment, exclamations and envious voices lingered. In fact, this was also Lin Yuan's first time seeing a Fey carriage. Lin Yuan saw 6 handsome and gorgeous avian Feys in front of the Fey carriage. These 6 avian Feys had a kind of noble and graceful pressure, which was very similar to the dragon species Fey's pressure. However, compared to the dragon species Fey's pressure, these 6 avian Fey's pressure was more agile and elegant. It was not as aggressive as the dragon species Fey's pressure. Lin Yuan subconsciously used true data to check these 6 beautiful avian Feys. At a glance, Lin Yuan found that the 6 avian fays in front of the fey carriage that Li Xian had summoned were all pure-blooded Luan Phoenix species fays. These 6 pure-blooded Luan Phoenix species fays had already reached an extremely thorough level in terms of bloodline stimulation. If they had a fortuitous encounter in the future, they were likely to successfully evolve into a main Phoenix species fey that was equivalent to a main dragon species fey. Li Xian walked forward and stroked the rosy red phoenixes one by one. After exchanging a few words with them, he said to Lin Yuan and Long Tao, "Brothers, get in the carriage. Brothers, get in the car. This place isn't far from Muxiangju, it'll be faster if we take the 6 Phoenix Rosy Phoenix carriage." Upon hearing that, Long Tao rolled his eyes at Li Xian and replied to Lin Yuan, "Lin Yuan, if it wasn't for you, Li Xian wouldn't have let me sit in his 6 Phoenix's Rosy Phoenix carriage even if you beat him to death. This 6 Phoenix's Phoenix chariot is Li Xian's treasure." Hearing that, Li Xian seemed to have acquiesced to Long Tao's words and said half-jokingly, "Of course, if it were you, I wouldn't have summoned the 6 Phoenix Crimson Phoenix carriage. At most, I can order a divine travel black swallow for you." Long Tao snorted when he heard that. "You should take the divine travel black swallow. Who knows, it might even cure your old hemorrhoids." When Lin Yuan heard Long Tao and Li Xian's conversation, he immediately nodded in agreement. It seemed like everyone felt uncomfortable with the divine travel black swallow. However, how did Long Tao know that Li Xian had hemorrhoids? Lin Yuan could not help but suddenly have a lot of small question marks. Lin Yuan was originally not keen on fey carriages, but after seeing this one pulled by 6 rosy red phoenixes, he decided that he must get Hu Quan to start building a fey carriage after he returned. This was because a fey carriage's coolness was not something that a simple mount could compare to. At that moment, Lin Yuan finally knew why men liked carriages. The 6 Phoenix Crimson Phoenix carriage's exterior decoration matched with the 6 fays pulling the carriage itself exuded a sense of beauty. After Lin Yuan entered the 6 Phoenix Crimson Phoenix carriage's cabin, he found that the interior was far more spacious than it looked from the outside. The interior of the 6 Phoenix Crimson Phoenix carriage was laid with down blankets woven from the feathers of various flying fays. On the long table in the middle of the carriage were a few jade utensils with rosy red phoenixes flapping their wings and wanting to fly. There were all kinds of spirit fruits in the utensils, and the aroma of the spirit fruits spread in the carriage. When the 6 Phoenix Crimson Phoenix carriage traveled in the sky, it was simply a kind of comfortable enjoyment. As the haze flowed, Lin Yuan felt as though he was in a fairyland of lights. Sunset clouds fly together, lonely ducks cry together. Long Tao and Li Xian, who were on the 6 Phoenix Crimson Phoenix carriage, looked at Lin Yuan with a hesitant expression. They obviously wanted to say something but did not know how to say it. Long Tao and Li Xian noticed each other's expressions and immediately understood what the other party was thinking. The first one was even worse. End of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.